to this special meeting, work session rather, to better inform ourselves on the 2021 Integrated Resource Plan. And for the record, those present are myself, Commissioner Sanchez, Commissioner Santos, and Commissioner Martinez. And on the phone is Commissioner Limchalco, I believe. Okay. So, John, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And first of all, as provided in November, I provided an initial outline plus all the individual volumes in itself. And again, I haven't released the volumes yet to others until we've gone through the CCU. No? And so the plan today is really to, I will start out with a summary of the overall IRP. What is it for, and what do we plan to do with it? And then I'll ask our individual teams to present on the individual volume, and on again, it's a summary of what it does and what they've concluded from it. And then of course, the Commission can ask questions on any of those points. And again, we will try to. I will explain to who the individual presenters are. And it's an effort, of course, over the past couple of years, really, by the team to really put together this integrated resource plan. Because again, the IRP historically has focused on evaluating the need for new generation resources to meet future load growth, address environmental requirements, and optimize costs. With the Ukudu power plant set for commissioning in 2024, I hope, and GPA commitment to 50% renewable portfolio standard by 2030, the focus has shifted as to how to achieve additional operational savings to efficiencies and to implement projects and programs to support this, as well as to support grid security, stability, and reliability while achieving meaningful greenhouse gas emission reductions. We have a balanced approach to reduce that by using, again, energy efficiency through our demand-side management programs, renewable energy, as you have seen we've begun, grid transformation. There has to be grid transformation in order to do the paradigm shift from conventional generation to renewable intermittent generation. And then eventually here as the movement move forward to transportation electrification. The American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy, as well as studies performed for the US EPA, maintain that the United States can achieve up to 50% of its target emission reduction through energy efficiency. And as could be seen, the Commission has recognized that early on and has, together with the PUC, implemented demand-side management rebate programs. And that is, again, continued by an annual $3 million budget to achieve that. This IRP document will be a living document to guide GPA decisions in the near future to achieve our mission of reliable power in an affordable way, in an environmental friendly way at an affordable cost. I will summarize over the next 3 pages what the IRP has concluded and recommended. Then we will have the other team make a deeper discussion onto the different volumes. A decision to approve the IRP is not a decision to approve the specific recommendations. GPA will review the recommendations and come back on the individual projects, bring it to the CCU for their approval, and if over the $1.5 million threshold, of course, to the PUC for their approval. But it is a guideline for the GPA to accomplish the mission at hand. Going into the summary, this is the conclusion from the IRP. No additional conventional generation resources are required in the next 10 to 20 years with the new Okudu power plant and the reserve facility constructed. And again, this is IRP only looks out 20 years. So over the next foreseeable 20 years, we don't see any additional need for conventional units aside from what we have contracted for today. To achieve 50% renewable by 2030, we would require to install about 408 megawatts of solar PV capacity, or the equivalent of renewable capacity. That's the equivalent of about 650 million kilowatt hours. To give you a relative example, the KEPCO solar PV up here in the Pagat, that provides 141 million kilowatt hours per year. So we need the equivalent of about 650 under a high load forecast, because we have provided with the IRP a low and a high load. A high load being considering more data centers as a way that more and more data centers may come into the island. Is our understanding, no? So again, once the CCU and PUC approvals are received, we will begin to prepare the procurement documents, and we'll go through the regular process just as we do. We bring the documents to yourself and say, we want to go out at this thing, phase 4A, we want to go up for 120 megawatts of renewable utility scale. You approve that, we go to the PUC, they approve that, and then we move with the procurement process. And again, that in itself has its own progress typically. The IRP adjusted load forecast also includes, with our load profiles, we estimate about 30 megawatts of rooftop renewables over the next 10 years, constantly happening on a regular basis. Yeah, total or not, it's, over the next 10 years, 30 megawatts, a growth of about that. And again, it's a small part of the overall plan, no? But at least we've also considered that some rooftops will continue to grow. Now again, this is the typical rooftop by customer owned, no? This is not what we will come in and recommend as a project to do rooftops, because again, there's utility scale, there's rooftops that we can take advantage of. All of those things that we are going to come to you in the near future and make a recommendation on. But again, it'll be a part as to how do we administer that program to be able to get, again, the lowest and the most affordable costs for the ratepayers. Because again, our mantra here is to move forward with renewables, but also at an affordable cost. No? This is where part of the 400 megawatts will include different projects, no? Utility scale, government of Guam projects, rooftop projects. And that we will come to you as a separate recommendation there. But this is the guideline for us to determine what do we need, what are some of the infrastructure upgrades that has to occur to make the different things happen, no? So that's what the IRP is, really our guideline. And you're not approving, by approving this, you're not approving that we're going to put all of this in 400 megawatts as utility scale. We're going to come back with that solution, no? But
Commissioner Sanchez, go ahead.
yeah. Yeah. Again, okay, this 30 megawatt is really a customer-owned, customer decision programs. No? Just like today, every month I give you how many net metering customers. So this is just allowing for that on the forecast. we have a forecast of what we believe we will need. Therefore, if they were to serve themselves, you minus that. So the balance is what we are planning to provide. And so that's what the 408 megawatts is going to be inclusive of utility scale, rooftop solar, say for all the schools or whatever. All of that will be part of the 400 megawatts.
Right. And all I'm saying is it just struck me as rooftop just struck me as such a small proportion of the total solar package that we're doing. And I agree with you that, we have control over utility scale, what we can do. It's hard, and we're working with, whatever the new NEM is going to become, and how do we pay for rooftop solar. That's all evolving with the PUC and ourselves, right?
Yeah.
But, the new IRP looks at that issue, right, I assume. And I'm just struck by how small we believe the rooftop solar piece will be in the future, and just talk about it as you go through it. I'm just trying to learn. It just seems that rooftop
part
solar.
Of it is, again, we have a docket to really reduce the subsidy from non-solar to solar. So if that docket approves that, then therefore
We're going to reimburse less.
It's going to be less, but we're still saying. So there are people that are still want to do that. So we're just allowing for that, and for planning purposes, we're saying, okay, 408 is really what we got to concentrate on, and maybe if none of them put in, it would be 438.
Yeah, okay.
If some of them
put in more, then we
put in more, then we reduce, because this is over the next 10 years. We'll be going out, every year or so with procurements.
But your projection is actually low rooftop penetration in the next decade and high utility scale solar use in the next decade seems to be the best mix that is emerging from the IRP.
Yeah, and utility generated rooftops, for example, DOE schools,
Government.
or
Is that part of the
institutions.
30 or is that part of our utility
Part
scale?
of the 400.
I know it's part of the 400, but I'm like Commissioner Santos, 30 is part of the 400, but rooftop is only 30 out of the 400. Am I misunderstanding?
30 is not part of the 400.
It's on top of the 400?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. My point is still, out of 430 megs in the next decade of new solar, rooftop is only
small, not even
7%.
Yeah.
Which strikes me,
No, but
30 over 430 is
Well,
7%.
no, what I'm also saying is, out of the 400, there'll be also a percentage of solar rooftops.
No, I know.
Okay.
That's what we're
So
saying.
we're trying to determine, John B., whether it's individual or how much of that is going to be Gov Guam. Because we know that Gov Guam is driving its own, and that's fine, right? But it has to be something we have to deal with also.
Yeah, on the government of Guam side, it will be part of that 400.
Right.
Now, if they decide they're doing it on their own, then of course that 400, whatever, if it's 20 or 30, will go down to would increase that 30 megawatts. But right now, we're presuming that we're going to come up with a program that will be to economies of scale, benefit the government,
But you're saying
and not
Gov Guam-
impacting the rest of the.
But can you clarify? I'm like Commissioner Santos, I'm a little confused. The way I'm hearing you, and correct me if I'm wrong,
Okay.
whatever Gov Guam does on would be rooftop solar on a school at UOG, wherever the heck they put it, right? You're still only projecting that rooftop solar, and correct me if I'm wrong, inclusive of whatever Gov Guam does, in the next decade is only going to add 30 megs of solar capacity. The rest will be utility scale. Am I misunderstanding that?
Yeah, correct.
Which is,
Uh,
correct,
you're
I'm misunderstanding or I'm
misunderstanding
correct? Okay, so help us better
The
understand.
400 megawatt is not all utility scale.
Okay,
It includes the government's
It
portion.
could solar PV, it could include other programs that we present to you, for example, smaller parcels of properties being converted to solar. So we'll come to you with different programs to achieve the 400 megawatts.
but in your example, smaller properties that you're converting to solar, that's utility-driven,
Utility
small
scale
utility
still.
scale solar?
Yeah.
It's not the 30 megs
That's
of
right.
rooftop.
Right.
And when I say when I think of Gov Guam, I'm like Commissioner Santos. Gov Guam is DOE schools, UOG, right? When I think of utility scale, that's GPA capacity that's being created.
Right.
DOE is not going to go build a solar farm. DOE's gonna put,
But
if it works, they're gonna put solar
what I'm
arrays
trying
on
to
the
say
roof.
is all of the 400 could be, and again, is subject to work out with government of Guam, subject to work out with Guam DOE, a program for a GPA to go out for solar to be installed in all the schools and its adjacent land area as part of that, under a bid by GPA to accomplish that with benefits to Guam DOE.
And so is DOE not in the 30.8? It's
No.
part of the 220?
Yeah.
And
Uh,
so
the-
I'm like Commissioner Santos, when you get to it, tell us how much of the 220 is GPA solar farms and how much of the 220
No.
is these other programs?
Right now, we don't have all that answers. In other words,
No, I understand, but you're making a projection. IRP is a projection, and we renew it all, every year, we look at it, that part's great.
yeah, right now we projected 30 as the
In the next
regular, just like you're doing the net metering today, that's happening.
You're
Any major changes to that is on the 400. So as we continue to go forward, and there's more that are cut out of that, then that 400 goes
so
lower.
okay, so if GW puts a solar array on its rooftop,
Yep.
in the IRP, are they part of the 30.8, or are they part of the 220 plus the
They
180?
put that on their own right now, they're part of the 30.
They're part of the 30, okay. So that's how, so I'm understanding like Commissioner Santos, basically, okay, we don't do rooftop, individuals do rooftop.
Yep.
Companies do rooftop, citizens do rooftop, we do utility scale, we do utility scale Ukadu, we do utility scale Marbo, Dun Dun, the new awards, phase 4 is a utility scale procurement we will issue to add more utility scale solar. The IRP says that's where most of the solar is gonna come from in the next decade. Based on our study, GPA will put in at a utility scale level most of the 408. Individuals are gonna put in 30.8 plus or minus, and I love what you're saying. If they put in 60, then what we have to do can go down. But I'm still saying, out of 408, you're saying only 30.8 is gonna come from rooftop?
No, I'm not saying that.
Well, then what is, help us understand where the confusion.
Could I interject, John?
Under the 408, okay, could be a utility-driven solar rooftop program.
I mean, like what? Well, okay, when you get into
Consolidation of all the DOE schools under one project will be part of the 400.
and we're putting the solar array on all the schools? Or a private partner is?
A private partner put it in under a contract by GPA issued, of course, and agreed upon by DOE or others. And again, this is where again, these are the decisions that are going to come later on as we come to you with the recommendations. All the IRP is telling us is that based on our projections, and we have cut out what's typical customer on, the balance is what our goal is to try to achieve, and we will come to you now with, okay, we recommend we do this for the DOE schools. We want a big utility scale. We want smaller size maybe for this type because of limitation of land. No? That we're going to come to you in another time for decision, and then from there proceed on the bidding and the process. No,
And that's part of the 220 on that?
That's part of the
That's gonna
big-
come by 2029, right? That third dot, right? You're describing another way that GPA brings solar onto the grid,
right.
right? Smaller scale, right?
Utility.
Right.
That's
And then-
all encompassed in the 400. no?
Right, and then within that mix as well, you project that individuals may also put 31 megs of solar on their rooftops
On their
in the next
regular-
decade.
yeah.
Right, and I appreciate what you're doing. You're in that balancing act of what do we think other people are gonna do? What are we gonna do at the macro level, large scale solar farm? And what we apparently are gonna be also doing at the smaller scale solar, but on, helping, DOE schools or UOG or whatever. That's all part of our total mix to get 408. We believe the demand, the need for energy will force us wisely to plan to install 408 megs of solar from a mix of ways over the next 10 years, right? That's what you're
right.
asking us to.
To achieve 50% renewable.
To get to 50, and that's what you're asking us to review, and, we do an IRP every year, every
So
other
from a high
year.
policy level, this is our
Okay.
and these are, and to show you that we have thought about what it would take, we can just say, okay, just give us 100% renewable and not understanding what it would take to keep the grid stable.
Right.
We have now come before you and saying, our estimate is about 233 million in projects and initiatives for integration of, again, this is more a lot intermittent type of
Right, this is our
renewables.
overall plan to
Yeah.
get to 50% by 2030, on our way to hopefully 100% by 2045. This is how we're going to implement it, and you're telling us that you and your team have a plan to get us to 50% by 2030, and here's how we're going to do it with this 408 megs, projected 408 megs of solar, which is a combination of utility scale, smaller scale, and individual citizens adding on their capacity. And when you add, your projection is when you add it all up, when we get to 408, we will meet the demand, the projected demand of the community in 2030, and we will be meeting that demand with 50% of our energy coming from solar.
And the specific way to meet that, we will be coming to you later on for your
That will be
review.
determined as you go down the
All
road.
the pieces, but this is the big picture.
This is just the big
So now that you
picture.
pass the policy, where we're going, now the
we go do
team
it.
will say, okay, how do we achieve this in the lowest and most affordable way possible? No?
Thank you, thank you.
And the other thing I'd like to highlight, John, you didn't say it, but it's said through your presentation, is the fact that to get to that 100, the next 50%, we don't really know what that's going to be like yet. Because in 2030, the renewable projects could change. You could have better other renewable kind of things that you can do. So this is just to get us to the 50%. You're talking about the 408. It could be 300 and some less. If it depends on the high load or the low load. Okay?
Yep.
This is just the big number. And then the different components of it will play out as you go down the road.
That's correct. And
Okay.
we regularly will be, it's a living document that will regularly update and.
Because
keep the
at this point, you
commission
can't
abreast.
say, okay, this is going to be, how much is this one is how much. Those things have to be determined as they come about, okay?
That's correct, Mr. Chair. Again, so we have about 230 in the next page, and I'll just briefly go through, just to show you really the magnitude of potential cost, no? Again, synchronous condensers are required to support increased solar penetration. Again, if less solar, then less synchronous condensers. However, to be able to have a solid grid, you gotta have synchronous condensers to be able to make sure that breakers trip and everything when there are force outages. No. The continued evaluation and implementation of demand-side management program, that's what we're doing, and programs to address EV charging to reduce impact on system peak, harmonics, three-phase power balance, and power quality, most especially, no? So again, we also provided an idea of a budget for IT/OT shared service transformation, a transformation from a GPA and a GWA to a GPWA IT program. No? So again, that's not a decision you need to make today, but is something that we'll bring back
That
to
the
you.
plan will
And it's
somehow
already
come
been
up.
evaluated and planned, and we will come with specific recommendations later on between Miguel and myself. No? The IRP portfolio of projects and initiatives are really 5 major components, as you can see in this the charts here, and it's in your package. It's really about, and each component is about 6 to 10 different initiatives for grid transformation, customer experience transformation, energy affordability, digital transformation, and foundational infrastructure. And again, what each of those entail is laid out in the graph there, and it's in your package, no? How different things that we're trying to improve the service to our customers, the cost, and all of that. So again, this is our guidelines for GPA to help towards achieving that. In terms of the budget, if the next page you see, again, updating of relays on the frequency, loading for load shedding as a result of different scenarios. So again, you're no longer going to have only about 10 or 12 generators running. You're going to have several thousand generators running. So you can see that becomes a complex challenge. How do you get everybody talking to each other to make sure you get a smooth energy flow, right? So again, these are part of the things that we have to work on. Synchronous condensers, that could be as much as 32 million. Those are we looked at the different candidates for synchronous condensers, where you take the machine that's there, like even TEMIS or CT, they do CT. Instead of having an engine run it, the generator, you'll be running it by like a motor now. So you disconnect the engine, or do you make it a dual service? These are things that, so we estimate that, no? The standalone synchronous condenser, 75 megawatt, 300 megawatt hour load shifting battery. Just one for the system to catch all this excess energy from different areas, charge the battery and use that at night. Or in the early morning, instead of backing off all the efficient generators, charge the battery and charge. So again, we're going to look at the economic analysis of that, and that will be something that we come to you, and including how to fund.
Load shifting.
Yep. So again, we talk about the 115 from Dandan, Malolo, all the way to Agana, so that we can minimize the utility scale costs, and that they don't have to put such a high investment into transmission lines, no? DSM program, again, we can take advantage of potentially of customer high air conditioning load or water heating load, where we can when we have to reduce load to serve other people, we can reduce their load, their air conditioning load, without causing an outage. So again, that's another program that will help the system, no? Remote start, auto stop. These diesel generators. And again, this is where the 41 megawatt in Cabras come in. Each of those units could be started remotely from this dispatch center. Case in point, the other day we had an outage, we lost a generator. The Greco units were on the line within 1-2 minutes, and within 3 minutes, those customers were back. Normally, we will have to wait for a combustion turbine, which takes 15 minutes, see? So, things like that. Pneumatic microgrid. Excuse me, my throat's getting dry. Pneumatic microgrid. Every time we have a storm, we have to wait until we fix the transmission lines to the south. If we take, as we have mentioned before, several of the former Agreco units, the GQ diesels, put about 5 of them down there, 5 megawatt in pneumatic. We can run that area separately from the rest of the system. So after a storm, we just start those generators, fix the lines, and at the same time we're improving the north from recovering from the storm, we're improving the south. Again, this is again something that all tied into this whole process. Solar irradiance, trying to project really now the weather, how much cloud cover or different things like that do we have, so that we can project, make sure we have enough capacity at the right time to achieve this. So again, there's a lot of even artificial intelligence type networks that we have to look at to place, because again, you're going to have thousands of generators on the island, and With only so much load and a requirement to provide a certain power quality, how do you achieve that? You achieve that with technology. And so these are the things that we will be falling into further to make this happen. So, yeah, I'm sorry. Again, we will come back to you, part of it. Yes, over 10 years. But again, some of it more immediate, no?
Yeah.
We're looking at ways, we're going to write grants, no? To see. Now, this is a basis really for our writing of grants. And then we'll also look as to how, whether we need to issue bonds in the future, no? So again, these are things that we're going to prioritize, which is our needs. Some of this will be funded from our regular 25 million CIP project, no? So
You
it'll be a
also have
combination.
private-public partnerships.
Yeah. Some will be like the battery
You might have
battery system. We
private-public
can do a
partnerships.
private-public partnership and base that. For example, that 75 megawatt, 131 million, no? Over 131 million. If we did it similarly to the, say, to the battery that we bought, right? Over the total kilowatt hour generated, that's probably less than a cent a kilowatt hour to have that battery, because everybody's paying for it, see? It's a small component. So we're going to come up with ways to come that, yeah.
Yeah, and then we're offsetting
Yeah.
the fuel savings. The fuel savings are so large that
Yeah.
whatever base rate borrowing,
Yeah.
it'll be more than offset.
And yeah, you're correct. The savings from doing this will actually more than offset the
like
base rate. Yeah,
And like
because
yeah.
it's more to how do we make the system more efficient by having catching the energy and minimizing the backing off of very efficient production or cheap renewables, no, and all of that. Maybe instead of each utility scale giving us, and again, these are ideas that are still being formulated between us and the team, no? Instead of each utility scale giving us one battery with 4 hours, small one, the economies of scale, bringing one here is cheaper than having everybody try to make that, see? That, so we can now reduce utility scale costs by taking a part of that equation out and handling it through another way, see? So those are the things that we still have to generate within ourselves and produce the documents that will justify it. No?
And John,
We're gonna have excess batteries from a Greco. You just said 5 going down to Matic, so it's another 30-something generators. Going to
Yeah.
microgrid.
Yeah,
That's the most efficient use of
that's correct. More microgrids, maybe even on the military base to protect keep that microgrid going so that again, that's money flowing to us, right? So yeah, the plan is after we get Okudu on, then we can proceed with the initial plans of how do we distribute these generators different area, and more specifically, take some of that to the south. Ne? Yeah. So at this point now, again, there are 9 volumes. I would like to ask each of the different teams to go through Volume 1, Generation System. Actually, will be John C. will take that one. Volume 2, Generation Expansion. Mrs. Jennifer Sablan, her manager for sport, will take care of that. Addendum 2018 Environmental Strategic Plan. Again, an update, making sure that we comply with environmental regulations. Roger Palubin, our engineering supervisor in the PNR, will take that. Demand Side Management Program, Francis Uriarty. Medium Range Distribution Plan, John C. And then Information Technology, we have Melvin, our manager for IT. Then Mrs. Sablan will also take Strategic Plan and Electric Vehicle. Then John C. will address the Net Metering Plan. Again, this plan is also part of the requirements for a PUC for some studies on the on the value of the solar PVs in the different areas. And this is partially completed. We have now the first set of a substation. We're doing 6 substations as part of the initial project, 6 out of the 29. And the 6 will be completed by February 24. So then we will have a complete package that can be submitted to yourself again and the PUC at that point. But it does show some of the issues that we are already experiencing out in the circuit. And John will go through that and what are some of the remedies for that. Again, this plan is, once CCU is approved, we'll be petitioning the PUC for their approval. And again, it's a plan, not a specific approval for procurement of any of the items within the plan. It will be a working document that GPA utilizes to achieve the mission that is on hand for us, which is to achieve 50% renewables by 2030. So John, if you could, there's no other questions at this time, I can ask John to proceed.
Let's start with John.
Thank you, John.
This IRP is very extensive. We've done a lot more work than in previous IRPs. We've included a medium-range distribution study. The generation reliability study includes the transmission. So it's basically based off of the work that we performed in the renewable integration studies. And literature search. It's a lot of reading. If you want to come to my office, you can take a look at the readings. There are about 100, 150, 200 articles and sources of information that we've had to look through. Including the consideration, and we're folding in our Frontier project. GPA was fortunate enough to get a grant with the Department of Energy to fund the Frontier project, which is a partnership between Guam Power Authority, Lawrence Berkeley National Labs, Argonne National Labs, Carnegie Mellon University, and Northern Arizona University. And that's about taking a look at energy resiliency on Guam. So we're folding in a lot of different aspects of taking a look at all the problems that we face and possible problems in the future. So I'm going to skip all the way down to the recommendations and conclusions of this study. First one is to maintain a legacy generation availability of 95%. Right? That's a big challenge. I think we can do it. The higher availability of all of our units means additional capacity to serve load. So like the difference between 85% and 90% availability of our legacy units means that at 90% we can serve 30 more megawatts than a system that's 85% reliable. Right? So maintaining our units and giving them high availability saves us money in the long run and pushes out the need for additional generation.
John, will you be describing, when you say legacy units, I mean, I assume we're not talking about any units that, Cabris 1 through 4 are gone, right? You're talking about the rest of the generation that remains,
Yes.
And then, of course,
That's not the
Ukudu becomes the new legacy
Yeah.
unit, right? But as you go through this, I'm just curious to understand, how many of the legacy, I guess the phasing out of the legacy. I mean, you're saying maintain all the CTs, all the other generations. So as you get through it, I'm just curious, if you take a look at GPA today with conventional generation, and in 2030 with conventional generation, including some legacy units, I want to make sure I understand the picture. There'll be Ukudu and what left in 2030, even though we're doing all this solar addition. I mean, I understand completely why you can't go to 100% solar by 2030 if you want reliable, low-cost power. to attempt to do that would not be in the best interest of the ratepayers.
Yeah,
So you got to keep some legacy units on.
Yes, you do.
But when I saw the availability at 95%, the question that it begged for me is, okay, through 2030, we're keeping
If
the
you
dead OCTs and all that. After 2030, they phase out, they disappear. So I'm just curious how that transition looks, because I guess the vision I have is after 2030, you got Ukudu and a bunch of solar farms, and then what other generation remains to ensure reliability? For sure, I think people underestimate reliability. And there's that old headline Ken Flores had, I'd pay anything for reliable power. We don't like that power is expensive, but what we don't like even more is that it's not reliable, right? And and that's the balancing act that is our obligation to our ratepayers with their money. They want low-cost energy.
Yes.
That's the no-brainer. But what they don't often say is, but they also want reliable power, and we have to marry those two ideas and implement them.
Yes.
Which is what we're doing with the IRPs. And it will, between now and 2045, as far as I can tell from everything I've learned from you folks, is you're going to have more solar brought onto the system. You're going to have still conventional generation to fill in the gap between what solar can do reliably and affordably and what it can't do. And you fill in that gap. And maybe, as the chairman has said, we get to 2045, and if technology allows us to be 100% solar and
Or something
100%
else.
reliable,
Or something
and
else
it's
comes
cheap-
along.
and it's cheaper, or some other option that technology brings to us, right? And it's cheaper, then our IRP from our successors in
evolve.
2035 and 2045 will be saying, whatever they're going to say. But I was just struck by maintain the legacy generation at 95%. I'm just curious, how many more units are we keeping online for how long?
So
Of the conventional generation?
So there's some maintenance outages that we need to be considerate of.
Okay.
When Ukudu power plant, every 5 to 6 years, the period will be longer if you're on gas because it's a cleaner fuel. You have to bring down
Right.
the steam turbine.
But that's what that's in part
Yeah,
what
and
the
either you
41
run-
megs are for.
And if you run the units in simple cycle, right, then you're burning up emissions credits, right? So you need to balance that either by judiciously using Ukudu so that you have more emissions credits during that period of time, or you need to have reserves on standby, right, to be able to do it for that month that unit will have those issues.
And this would be in addition to the 41 megs that's already designed into Ukudu. So just when you get to it, I'm just curious, in 2030, what legacy units are still online? And do they ever,
They'll be primarily on reserve.
no, I know that. What are they? How many units are on reserve, right?
Yeah.
We know it ain't gonna be the Cabras units, so it's dead at those. So I'm just curious, as you get through when I saw the 95% legacy generation, it just struck me that, wow, we're gonna, after Cabras, all the other units we currently have online remain online at
Can I
95% availability?
interject? Can I just,
For how long?
Yeah.
Yeah, also, the more reliable that we keep that legacy generation, the less of them that we need.
so
That's what
therefore,
we're-
can I
we're
interject?
trying to-
What you're trying to talk about is not 95% of the generation. They're talking about the
Each unit.
availability being at 95%.
Right, but you
So,
have to keep them.
no, wait. What I'm trying to tell you is the availability of whatever generation you have at that time is at 95%. That means you can do with less of them. You understand? So that,
I'm not sure that's.
that's what, let's clarify that right now, because it says maintain a legacy generation availability.
Yeah, so dead at
of
OCT
ni-
to
No,
me
no,
is-
wait. Let me finish.
Right, okay.
Maintain a legacy generation availability of 95%. In other words, those units are available 95% of the time, John?
Yeah. Case in point, Okudo itself, is part of the legacy moving part.
It's the biggest part.
Right. So it has its performance requirement, I think 95 or more. And So therefore, maintaining that at 95 and above allows you to retire more units.
That's what that is.
And those that you're keeping, as long as you keep them up at 95, allows you to retire more units. So as we move forward, then we're going to evaluate what is
What the
needed to
needs.
keep those machines and then retire a lot more machines to lower the cost.
So I was just curious, as you go through your presentation, what are those units that you that you preserve? And then as we begin to identify that we might phase out?
I
over-
don't
Yeah.
think.
And I don't think we
you-
answered that question today because
can't, yeah.
we're not even at the Okudu stage yet. So over the next several years, remember we still have 2-3 years before completion of the plan, different things may happen to different machines, no? So at some point, evaluation does look at what our cost factors are if we
To
took
keep
out
it going.
MEC 8 and 9, because of course it's a costly reserve, right? It does look at how much more that we can take out to meet. So as we move forward, those are the top candidates at this point, and then we will bring to you a decision at various points and said, okay, I think we want to retire this machine now because we have maintained this reliability, we have this much renewables, and therefore we can maintain the required reserve to accomplish the major overhauls as required. Because the Ukudu plan once has to come down for a little less than a month.
Right.
And during that period of time, you have to have the other generators generate that energy.
And I was just curious what those
Yeah.
are. What
And
those?
I
Yeah,
don't,
most of those
but
would
I
be
don't
the-
think
yeah.
you can identify that with specificity right now, because as you add in your utility scale renewables that are now charging batteries to shift service, those are different factors, and as they put together their plan, there's all these moving targets, that'll get, at some point, they're gonna say, okay, now we can start retiring this unit or retire that unit, because these other units are now picking up the load. So that's why this is a plan, to me, this is a plan that says this is how we hope to get there. It's a combination of utility scale solar, some new generation, some old existing generation, but you can't plan it and say A, B, C, and D. As you put it together, you're going to find out what more you need, because you're putting in synchronous condensers, you're doing a whole bunch of other things that allow greater generation capability from the renewable energy utility scale farms.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Mr. Chair.
So I'm just saying, I don't think they can pinpoint and say, well, this one goes away at this date, this one goes away at this date. It depends on how they put it together, John.
Is that
For
true?
example,
You can't predict by 2030.
We have taken a
units
look
will
at
retire.
retirements of units.
Huh?
We have taken a look at retirements of
Okay.
units, both on,
That's all I was curious about.
on computing the peak load carrying capability of the system,
yeah.
which is, with the generation you have, the reliability that you have, what can your generation system support? What kind of peak?
No, I understand. I just, again, I totally agree with what the chairman said. I think he said it very well. And we know it's an evolution. When I saw that one sentence, maintain legacy generation of 95%, I started to wonder about, we have some older units.
Availability.
Right. Right, but even an older unit, at some point, we're not gonna make it available because it's too expensive to run and we
No,
retire it.
I know.
As some of those changes you described happen, we're gonna retire units. That LCT, one day will get retired. And it'll be in our IRP. I don't know if it's in this IRP, it might be in the next IRP, but the one sentence you put up there, maintain legacy generation availability of 95%. It just made me think about,
Okay.
with what we already have, plus Ukudu, I'm trying to imagine the picture in 2030 that our IRP foresees of what generation would look like
Okay.
in 2030.
Can I take one more stab at this?
Well, taking into account
No,
everything
no.
the chairman said, which I
No,
thought
no,
was great.
let me try one more time. Let's read that sentence, maintain a legacy generation of 95%. Take out the word availability. Then you're right on, Commissioner Sanchez.
But
Then you're talking
then you have a priority list of retirement.
of retirements. But what they're saying there, that statement says maintain a legacy generation availability of 95%. In other words, whatever units they decide to keep online, they have to be able to be available at 95%. That's all that says. If you take the word availability out, then I'm agreeing with you. You're talking about which generation is going to be around. That's not what that says. They're not going to keep 95% of the generation they have now. They're going to make sure that whatever they keep has to be available 95% of the time. Okay? Okay, John.
And the more reliable your units, the less units you need.
Yeah,
So-
there you go.
And
Schedule major maintenance during March. That's because it has both some of the lowest daily system peaks of the year, and it also is the highest daily solar PV production month. So if you want to use the solar PV in batteries, right, to support the grid when you have major outages, generation outages, that's the month that you should schedule that in. Because then you have, not only you have low peaks, but you also have the bevy of renewable energy shifted generation to support the loads. Okay, so we looked at each month, every day, and came up with a heat chart that says, okay, where are my lowest peaks and where are my highest solar production? And then we took a look at it and said, oh, look, March is ideal so that we both have low peaks and we have a backup from the solar generation. Okay. We recommend a minimum installed reserve policy of 200 megawatts for Ukudu steam turbine outages. Okay. And we need to evaluate optimum generation outage scheduling for the Ukudu steam outage, turbine outages, as well as any major generation outages. Complete the renewable integration study recommended projects, and that's a lot of those projects that are in the list that you saw of CIP projects are part of that recommendation. Implement adaptive under-frequency load shedding and adaptive under-voltage load shedding schemes. As we have more solar rooftop generation, it becomes more difficult in terms of putting conventional under-frequency load shedding and under-voltage load shedding. Okay. Procure and implement a grid transformation solution projects, which are listed up there. And you'll see that there's some commonality between all of these panels because some projects actually support affordability, grid transformation, and customer experience. All right. Second slide. Second. Okay. Yep. I'll turn it over to Jennifer.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Okay. So this part of the IRP, which is the expansion plan, actually evaluates the issues presented by Commissioner Sanchez and then discusses some of the things that General Manager and John have already talked on. It is modeling how resources, when we would need them, the timing, the size, and it's based on a lot of assumptions. So we've got load forecast assumptions, field forecast assumptions. We've got identified technically feasible resource options. We evaluate the other regulations and rules and mandates that are before us, which includes the consent decree, the retirement of Cabris 1 and 2, the plans that we have in place, the phase 2 contracts, the Ukudu plant, and some other of the requirements such as the renewable portfolio standards and any other environmental requirements that are coming down on us. We've contracted consultants to help with some of these forecasts. Leidos did the field forecast, and we had 3 scenarios for that, a low, base, and high. We worked with UFS through our finance group for the low forecast, and they did a base scenario and a high scenario, which we talked about for the DC, which is the data center, sorry. That's for a high load scenario with these data centers because they're high continuous loads that would be impacting our peak capabilities, right?
So let me ask a question, because when we talk data centers, a lot of the discussion that we hear is that they want to build within their power requirement their own solar power. Is that something that's going to be part of this rooftop solar, or what do we call it in our world? Because, I mean, it's almost a given that they're going to want to do their own solar power.
So the assumption is that they've approached us to see whether we can meet the requirements. But they also have, because they're critical service,
Right.
they need to have the backup necessary to support their customers. So if they don't have solar, then they have to have generator,
Right.
or they have to have us. So they've been discussing different scenarios in order to meet their requirements to serve their customers and be reliable. So we have to anticipate potentially serving a data center. And if they don't come in, then they don't come in. So we just need to know. Yeah, because a data center load could potentially impact our peak requirements, and then we need to make sure we're able to meet that requirement.
So they have like Jennifer is saying, they can generate solar energy for themselves there, but we are the standby, and to be the standby with the cost. Case in point, when we have rain for 2, 3, 4, 5 days, instead of having 5 set of solar batteries available on standby, it's better that they buy for us. So that's the whole concept with why we have Okudu instead of a whole bunch of batteries. If you recall, I estimate about 7 cents per kilowatt hour per battery for every day. One battery for every day, 7 cents, which is quite prohibitive in cost. So we're the standby, and that comes at a cost, and then we plan for that.
And in my discussions with the data center group, their big issue is not generating power. It's getting the cost of generating the power down. I mean, John and the team is correct that, whether they buy it from us, whether they put up their own system, and putting up your own system doesn't guarantee you 9 to 11 cents unless you got a huge amount of land, right? But data centers won't come here. I forget their sweet spot, but it's something like 8 or 9, 10 cents a kilowatt hour, and then we'll get a lot of data centers, or like you said, Jen, or if we can't meet that number, then we may not get a lot of data centers, right? The challenge is getting the pricing right. What can we get it down to if they remain 100% our customer? What can they get it down to if they do it on their own? Because there's risk like rainy days, they're going to need a backup, and they may end up buying a generator anyway. And if you're going to buy a generator, you might as well talk to us because we got lots of generators. So part of the data center challenge and that we should plan for in case we can hit that number. It's a wonderful load. It's a lot of load, and it's steady. That's the kind of customer we like. But we're not going to get them here until we can get that aggregated cost lower. But adding the solar farms we're adding the batteries we're adding, getting solar farms to become cheaper, getting batteries to become cheaper, all that new technology will someday open the door, I think, where there's that sweet spot where a data center says, okay, now it's power on Guam is much more, is at a level we can do it. And the other piece I learned that I wasn't aware of, one of the reasons we're attractive as a data center is how much gaming and how much data exchange is going on in Asia, between Asia and America. But if you're in LA playing a game, the lag time with the guy in Hong Kong you're playing against when your boy hits go, the lag time is a problem. So they want to move a data center same day, same side of the world. That's part of our attraction. But we got to get that price of energy as low as we can get it for them to come here, whether they do it with us or they do it themselves. And that's kind of what all those discussions are going on that you're...
And we want to be a part of those discussions so that we make it, because again, it's for the greater good for the island.
They'd rather buy it from us.
But
we got to
again,
get the number down.
We can work out different things like transmission rates, no? Different things that can make it. So again, but we want to track it here, and that we're planning for that. Okay.
So just so you know, we do look at high scenarios that would include larger loads. May something that we would. And just to go back to the base forecast and in the DC forecast, a consideration of the growth of net metering customers is the 30 megawatts. So we're lowering projected energy requirement
By
that we would
30.
need to meet because we're considering there's a growth in the net. So that was one of the things that was mentioned earlier. And you know, we're also dealing with COVID and what the projections are going to be going forward. So this forecast is a forecast, and we would need to be looking at it constantly to see how we're improving in sales and load growth and
That's why you can't retire. You're the youngest one here.
so
From our experience, COVID actually should have increased our sales.
Except for hotels, except for tourism.
It depends. It increased some and decreased others.
that's a big sector. So keep in mind that we have forecasts, but it needs to be updated as we move forward. So we'll continually do RENs to evaluate retirements based on load projections, fill costs, and other renewable options that are more feasible for Guam as they mature. Okay, so yes, this is the expansion plan that kind of try to take all of that stuff and shoot out some results that can help us plan better. So the next slide is a sample of resource modeling, and this has been updated. We have stakeholder meetings, and we actually, through our stakeholders, found we had an error, so we're correcting it, and we will be advising on the corrections. So it may be a little bit different from the handouts that you had been provided in November. So in this scenario, we look at a base case, which assumes the base forecast on load, base forecast on fuel. We have phase 2 Ukudu in there, as well as the retirement for Traverse once Ukudu is online. Don't have phase 3 in the base case, and we don't have any other renewables in. And this is just to show, kind of going forward, what renewables do and whether other options may come in to beat it or to serve load or for whatever reason they need to come in. So a base case is the reference case for any comparison. And then the next case would be adding the additional solars. And we're using solar because every bid that we've gone out to do, solar has come through and succeeded in the awards. It may not be in the future, but we don't intend to restrict it. It's just been the one that we can rely on as far as reference.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Jennifer, because I remember in the very early bids that we put out, we said any kind of renewable energy, including nuclear power. So, you don't know what's going to happen in the future. In the future, these small modular nuclear power units may become so efficient and so safe that they'll actually be attractive for us. That's a game changer. That's why I've always said that, it's hard to maintain, or it's hard to quantify at this point in the game exactly what units will be in play. We know what we're going to do by 2029. That's kind of a little crystal clear. But after that, it depends what new technology, because there's a lot of breakthrough stuff coming through now in technology. So we'll just have to wait and see. One of the things I read about, which interested me, is how they're trying to make batteries with using the substance of hemp instead of precious minerals, or so that
Make people happier, if nothing else.
No, seriously, there is a study and there is work going on in that area. So, it drives down costs. Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So, and you'll see that Leidos actually does recommend or provides options that are evaluated to see whether they'll come in to some of these things. And it includes OTAC, ocean thermal. It includes seawater air conditioning to lower energy use. I think we even have some pump storage in there. So there are several options that are evaluated that can be considered renewable that would compete against this. And we're only using these phase 4 and phase 5 as reference to help meet the renewable portfolios, get us to the 50% requirement. And we're basing it on the phase 3 bid under protest, so we don't have a resolution on that. But we have a price. And so we're using that price, and again, that's an assumption. Things could change. So it could get better, it could get worse, because we're considering these to be fully shifted energy contracts. Because we would max out on delivery, daytime penetration, because of all the solar. Okay, so as you go further down, we're adding 3, 4, and 5, and now we're retiring PD 8 and 9. And we're looking at that scenario. So the first column is the MPV cost. The second column next to that would be a savings from the base, which is, again, without any of the 3, 4, and 5. And then we can see the positive number is savings. So as we add the 3, 4, and 5 renewables, you see a savings of $200 million over the study period. And then as you retire, you can see there's more savings. So we are looking at retirements to show that those units may not be necessary to serve load. The renewables are lowering costs, and that taking out unnecessary units due to their fixed costs are actually going to lower costs. So that's addressing Commissioner Sanchez's question about what are we going to be retiring. And this is just a sample. The next one would be a DC load. Not the base case anymore. Now we're looking at a data center forecast. But it's referring to, as far as savings, that it's going to be an increase in cost, and that's expected because you're increasing load, so therefore you're increasing cost. But as you add renewables, the cost is lower. Still an increase, but you're showing savings. So this is some of the scenarios that we ran. The next slide is now how we deal with additional retirements. Again, this is just a sample. We have other samples of the document that go through iterations of retirement of PD at 1 year, the 2024 all the way to 2031, 87, retirement of Tenjo, retirement. We look at different retirements. We look at combinations of retirements. And again, this is all going to be based on what load is going to be, whether these renewables come in, because they affect reserve margin. And reserve margin is what's kind of triggering, is what is setting the requirement on whether these retirements will impact whether new reserve units come in or not. And reserve margin is the difference of the installed capacity and the peak requirement over the peak requirement. So that's kind of what John Cruz was mentioning about maintaining a certain number of units to serve load during outages. This reserve margin kind of sets that requirement. So when it does the modeling, it ensures that the units that are modeled will meet the demand requirements. And
And I'm sorry, Jim, lowest RM is revenue, wait, what is the
it's
RM?
reserve margin.
Reserve margin.
So
Okay.
throughout the study period, we look to
I
see whether
see.
we're meeting, and we set 75% as a reserve margin. And we look to see if we're meeting that requirement. And if we're not, what will happen is a new unit will come in. So in all these scenarios that we have on these tables, there's no new resources coming in. The Ukudu plant really is
The last one.
reading
We're
the
hoping.
reserves.
The same word availability, right, that's really the word we should be
Yeah.
considering, right? It's what's available at this point in time.
Yeah.
Given that we have at some point retire.
And protect,
It just makes sense.
but protect that margin, just
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So in the past, we've used N-2 or N-1, which
Yep.
is the largest baseload unit reference point. John doesn't really talk about it too much in detail, but the volume 1 actually evaluates the capability of how we could serve load through a bunch of modeling. He put together a bunch of probabilistic calculations and did modeling to show that if we take out these units, we're not going to be able to serve load. And so that's kind of all leading to why we ended up using 75% as a reserve margin requirement.
I mean, I think, guys, quite frankly, we all take that for granted because we haven't had a major outage on our island. We used to that, set, the expectation is it's gonna come right back. But even though I've already trusted the system enough, hey, no more than half an hour, 45 minutes. It's gonna, unless I read something where it says, no, we have a bigger problem. And it's just a matter of time. And fortunately, it's been in the evening, right? So it's a little bit cooler and, yeah. But I think we all understand, and I think as we look at this thing is what units we decide to have to maintain, because we have to maintain. I mean, the expectation to think that the renewables is going to keep our lights on is, that mindset is still out there, because they think renewables is, that be God's gift to all. And we absolutely know it's not true.
And what's also good, and the chairman will remember this, and John, because you guys none of you were born yet, except maybe Peter Roy. But when we went through the load shedding blues, the whole idea of having a reserve margin, and two largest plants being subtracted. I mean, that's been since Joey and I had hair, which was a long time ago. But that whole exercise with John and realizing that we got into the load shedding blues movie, it was the worst movie ever. And we have worked for the last 30 years of building up capacity and making sure we have enough reserve. And now technology is saying there's a new way to make energy that could be cheaper. It's called solar plus some storage and maybe some shifting. And the chairman's right, there's even more technology coming down the pike. But this whole concept of having a reserve margin, it's sort of power 101. And I've also learned from two GMs that like to go fishing, John and Ken, I've never been on a fishing boat that only had one engine. And when you're in an isolated grid, a little boat out in the islands, out here in the Pacific, you better have a reserve margin and a mix of technologies available to us that when you blend it all together, it's achieving the lowest cost possible but keeping reliable service on and recognizing that we're out here on our own boat. So backup is so critical. That reserve margin is so critical. So what I'm really happy about is the way the analysis is working out is it really does emanate a lot from protecting a reserve margin. You project future demand, that tells you gross capacity need, but if that's the gross need, what's the reserve you better have around that gross need to keep the lights on, to have a reserve margin? And I appreciate that this is, I don't know, Chairman, my maybe 5th or 10th IRP that we've looked at, but that's that whole concept of having that reserve margin and setting it. And for the boat called Guam, ours is, what I'm hearing from our team is you never look at anything below a 75% reserve margin, or at least that becomes kind of your thinking point. Because anything below that, you start to, now your boat may only have one engine. And that's what you worry about. I don't care how good the engine is, right? Things fail.
Yes, we're going to take a look at useful and faster mix. Renewable energy and legacy units and all that. Big elephant that you don't know the size of is electric vehicle, electrification of transportation. And if you don't have a reserve that you need it, you're going to be shooting out of it. That's a really, apocalyptic scenario, but, there's a risk.
Well, I mean, we love to be the next gas station, but I've heard the chairman ask it, John and I talk about it. We say, so when you're at 100% renewable, what's the reserve margin when you're at 100% renewable? Do you build another 100% worth of solar farms? Do you build 75% more solar farms? It's a very important question that we don't need to answer today, but on that journey to maximizing renewables, I keep thinking about the one boat and the one engine or two engines or 1.5 engines, or what is the reserve margin when you're 100% renewable? And our successors will figure that out. They better figure that out. But along this journey from where we are now, where we've been conventional, to bringing on more renewables and However, that technology is evolving now with storage. The whole idea of the reserve margin is however we mix the capacity of generation, however we generate the energy, you've got to protect that reserve margin. You've got to have enough mix and match of technologies online available to dispatch when and if you need it, because I still think about Typhoon U2 hit Saipan and they lost 20% of their solar, rooftop solar. So if Guam's 100% solar in 2045 and Typhoon Simon shows up and knocks out 20% over a 3-day storm, what does John Benavente Jr. think about, or John Cruz Jr. or Jen's daughter think about 30 years from now going, how the hell do I get the lights back on when I've got to put 20% of my solar capacity back online? And that's to me the elephant in the room. That's the real elephant in the room is we haven't had a major storm since we started putting solar farms and solar arrays on property. And when we go through that, and as we've learned with every natural disaster and God-given disaster, God's in charge, whether it's COVID or a typhoon, we have to prepare for the unexpected. And that's where reserve margins is one way to cover for the unexpected. Have a second car, have a third car. Not many of us have more than one car. We need generation capacity from the mix of technologies that never let us go below a 75% reserve margin. And we hope that that's the right number, right? I mean, if Typhoon Simon shows up and knocks out 70% of Guam's solar array in 2046, the 75% is not going to be enough. And they would be having load shedding in 2046. And they'd have to get the system back up. And that's just something, there's not much you can do about that. You just have to plan for it. And that's what reserve margins do. They plan for the unexpected knocking out a big chunk of your capacity. And how do you keep the lights on? And I'm very happy that that's been a threshold for many, many years.
In the literature, there is real big concern in other places that being to have this wholesale, let's retire unit. And even organizations that we say, grid that you're beginning to build is going to be very unreliable. If any one big disaster, you will be in trouble. And, we hear those tweets. There are people that they say, put all eggs in one basket and let's go and have that party. But that's our job to be forward. Anticipate all those issues that may arise. Weigh the risk and the cost.
So the chart that's there, and the table that's there, goes through various scenarios of retirements to give us an idea of cost. And again, this is not what we're recommending today, but it gives you an idea. So as things become more solidified over the years to come, for example, phase 3 come in, we put it into the program. The phase 3 reduces the peak at a certain reliability rate. Therefore, we can say, okay, we're comfortable retiring this much legacy units. But again, this is how we go through the process. This is what, based on these scenarios, we see the cost going down. No? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, so in the recommendations, we're recommending to just move forward with the renewable acquisitions with energy shifting, so batteries, preferred technology so far. Continuous investigation of possible unit retirements, as we discussed. We would need to improve availability in our units, so there's some assumptions for capital costs for life extension, types of things. Update the LNG study. We do have an LNG forecast, and we do model an LNG impact. So looking at that again and refreshing costs and assumptions and feasibility needs to be done. Also complete the projects, as John Cruz had also mentioned, in the 2018 Renewable Integration Study, which addresses system impacts for additional renewables, an analysis of short-circuit MVA due to the inverter-based systems, conversion of potentially our CT units as synchronous condensers, and also additional system upgrades as we need. Okay, that's it for me.
that's a generation expansion, and so if there's no other questions on that at this time, we can go to volume 3, which is on our environmental strategic plan. And then Roger Paluban is our engineering supervisor.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I'll be discussing Volume 3, which is the 2018 Environmental Strategic Plan. The Environmental Strategic Plan, or ESP, addresses the environmental regulations that may affect, that are applicable or affect GPA's power generating plants.
Good.
As an addendum to the 2018 ESP, GPA summarizes the most recent requirements from the April 2020 consent decree and the 2020 state implementation plan. So these are still both in progress. These include some requirements regarding conversion of CABRAS 1 and 2 to a 0.2% sulfur RFO, and the retirement of CABRAS after Ukudu Power Plant is placed online. It also includes conversion of the PD 8 and 9 units to ULSD, including installation of oxidation catalysts. Continuous monitoring and managing of US EPA regulations are required to prepare for compliance deadlines. GPA continues to research on and pursue recommendations from the 2018 strategic plan. Now, these recommendations are as follows. Expanded aggressive compliance program. So wherein we monitor current and upcoming EPA regulations that may affect the authority. Also, inclusion of fuel supply system in GPA continuing obligations. So as part of our day-to-day O&M activities and tracking and taking into consideration environmental compliance. Also is compliance review for temporary power generation. So this is regarding the formerly known as AGRECO. So as you heard from the GM, our future plans are to possibly distribute these in other areas. Asset retirement or deactivation. So this is regarding the CABRAS 1 and 2 power plant. Continuing work on decreasing hazardous air emissions. So I guess this will be discussed later on. Like you have the DSM program, electric vehicles, renewable energy contracts, execution of compliance options for current and older power plants, investigation of utility scale and island-wide use of electric vehicles, investigation on proper disposal of solar PV panels and lithium-ion batteries, regulatory compliance and solicitation for new generation. So as we have now, we are building or contracting out the Ukudu power plant. Continued tracking, monitoring of compliance requirements like the Clean Power Plan or CPP and the Affordable Clean Energy Rule or ACE rule. So these two were meant for reducing of CO2 emissions and greenhouse gases. Yeah, for the state implementation plan, because as one of the largest generator of emissions on the island, and with the non-payment areas for the SO2, so we played a part in trying to meet these SO2 requirements or the national ambient air quality requirements, so that the island will be in compliance with the current air emissions for the island. So as one of the biggest generators, like we helped in forming the state implementation plan in cooperation with the Guam EPA. Okay, that's kind of short and sweet.
Okay.
Anyone has questions?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Who began this environmental plan? year behind the last match. Year looking forward, but we're always know what's coming down.
Okay. Who's going to do volume 4?
That will be.
Francis, okay, Francis, you got the floor. Please speak into the microphone, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me?
So I'll be speaking about our demand side management plan. So this the demand side management is just it's more than just the appliances rebate program. It consists of major activities such as energy sales appliance rebate program, our energy audit programs, marketing plans, metering and verification, our UESC, which is the Utility Energy Services Contracting, grant-funded projects, our pilot project programs, and our demand-side programs, demand response program, which is going to be something we'll be doing in the future. So we are expanding the current program to include the commercial customers. This is to fulfill part of the PUC order 13-40. And then we're setting the current residential rebate program incentive levels, the rebate amount, to ensure that EP is not overfunding the cost of the appliances. And we're now adding online service. It's a demand side online or digitization. This will allow GPA to improve the program by increasing efficiency, reduce errors, consolidate business tools, and record and extract data for our analysis and reporting. We are currently partnered with Siemens under our UESC programs to provide Navy, UOG, schools, GDOE, private schools with energy efficient projects, and we also accomplishing using them to accomplish the grant funded projects. Our marketing allow us to conduct the surveys and promote our commercial program and our demand side online. And without the LEAC funding, it would be difficult to carry on with all these activities. The LEAC has really allow us to meet all the PUC mandates. These tables, it's kind of, you can see it. This is the for the commercial rebate program. This is the amount of rebates that will be given out or applied to the program. So it's in terms of dollar per ton. So bigger units will get bigger rebates. And more efficient units will get, bigger, and more efficient units will get bigger rebates. So it's for the ductless split air conditioning, ducted central air conditioning, variable flow, variable refrigeration flow, and the packaged rooftop units. These are all under the commercial.
Francis, I see a lot of utilities also doing DSM where they're funding batteries. are we, I didn't see, I see it's all aircon, and, which is important, right? But is any of our new DSM program looking at funding storage for folks that want to put a battery on their system?
Well, what I'm getting at is what we're currently going to roll out, so, but yes, we are looking at batteries.
Okay, so we're looking at it.
Yeah.
Just right now, this is
Yeah.
this current IRP is ready to do this now.
Yes.
But GPA is looking at whether it makes sense for DSM support for storage.
Yes, sir.
Right, for consumer, for residential or commercial, because I'm seeing that more and more with other utilities where they've expanded their DSM program. Did the PUC order talk about batteries, or was it all air cons and? I mean, this is almost all aircon, right?
It talks that we need to do a pilot project on batteries.
So is this, are we
That'll have to,
are we doing
that
one,
funding will
or?
have to come out of that, the LEA.
Right, so I didn't see any listing under this presentation on a pilot project for batteries, or, I'm only seeing aircon, so are we, and Francis is saying you are looking at it.
Yeah, well, we put it under demand response.
It's something, look at that a little more closely.
Okay.
When we get to volume 9, and John explains what's happening to the system, because ever since we started, we have not required batteries, but there are some problems that are occurring out in the system that batteries and other solutions can fix, and again, it's affecting non-net metering customers. And therefore, it's a solution that we have to fix, whether through solar or batteries by the particular solar PV providers there, or batteries putting in within the system, within that feeder, to accomplish the goals that are the findings that we're of the problems that we're experiencing that are affecting that.
Did the PUC accept our proposal that all new installs have to come with storage, or did they reject that?
They basically came back and said you should stop that because we should approve that. Although we have differences, we will look at it on a case-by-case basis, and we will have a discussion further on that. So one of the discussions...
GPA and PUC, GPA?
GPA and PUC.
So right now, PUC has said, what about our requirement to require storage with new installs?
They asked us
to hold off on that?
Ordered us to stop it.
Okay.
But I'm also saying at the same time, I have to keep an eye on the system. There are some circuits that are way over what is a recommended threshold. And continuing to adding batteries impacts the reliability of the...
So you might have to do it on a circuit-by-circuit basis, maybe?
That's correct.
Okay, so we're still wrestling with the PUC, but
Yeah.
right now
That was from the last PUC meeting, so we're evaluating that further and relaxing our requirement right now to see on a case-by-case basis. No?
And then
But-
while we're doing that,
Yeah.
one piece of the puzzle we are looking at is the possible use of some assistance for the bringing of storage onto the system by a commercial or residential account. There's some challenges. We're still kind of reviewing it.
Yeah,
is what
and
I'm hearing.
again, we have to tie it in with the concept as to why we're giving out DSM programs. The DSM program is being provided to reduce their overall load, which reduces their fuel consumption. So that savings from fuel consumption is utilized to give back to the user, which at the same time, some portion of it is given back to the user, and the balance of it is really shared by the community as a whole under the EAC program.
Right.
So the same concept, we're trying to look at the batteries as to how that will save the customers by doing this, no?
Yeah, plus I'm seeing, and I know you know more of this than I do, but I'm seeing that other utilities, the idea that of load shifting is if John Beneventi puts a battery in his array at his house, if there's a way to dispatch his energy from noon at night, that helps reduce the cost of fuel, that's another way to tackle the fuel
It
problem.
goes back, we need to settle this issue about net metering, the full credit, no? Because adding more batteries to give them for full credit and giving them more money doesn't make sense
gonna
because
work,
the
yeah.
non-net metering is continuing to subsidize.
So the concept's right, the pricing's wrong.
Yeah. So
got it.
once we can get to a balance parity scenario, close to parity, then it makes sense to move out all the different programs. So
That explains why that.
so that's why we have to complete that volume 9 report.
The response.
Which will then continue the discussions on the net metering. And as you will see in volume 9, there is some recommendation by our consultant, which is again still a policy code that I have to come back to you for example, grandfathering net metering components here by so many years. So again, that's a recommendation is in the IRP recommended by our consultant, which I will have to bring to the CCU for their approval and then bring to the PUC. Huh?
This was
Okay.
low-hanging fruit, though,
Yeah.
for DSM. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to recognize Commissioner Nimchalka has joined the meeting. He was on the phone. So Commissioner Nimchalka, did you have a question?
Just on the rates, the schedule shows the rebates are per ton. So these are based on the schedule here, so greater than 5 tons, these rebates apply per ton? So at 5, it's multiplied by 5, or is that the range?
Yeah, per ton.
Per
So
ton?
If you
Okay.
have a 5-ton machine, then 5
Yeah.
times that.
The larger the units, you're gonna get more rebates.
And is there a cap on it? Is there a certain maximum amount?
Right now, we're not capping.
There's no cap, okay. So if it's a 20-ton
Is this a
unit?
proposed plan? Francis?
The
Francis?
only cap is, I'm sorry, yeah, the only cap is the number of, the largest unit. We were looking at maybe capping around 15 to 20 tons, because you go bigger, you know,
Yeah.
it's.
That's not what this is, though, it just says greater than 5 tons. so.
Yeah.
Where's the cap language?
I didn't have it on it there, but that's what we've been tossing around and trying to figure out.
Okay, Francis, for clarity, this plan is being proposed, there's also already in place.
For this 1 year commercial is we're rolling out, so
You're proposing it.
it's proposed, but it's we're currently rolling out already.
Okay, then I suggest you need
Put
to
in
clarify.
language in there that is gonna be.
You need to clarify. Commissioner Limchalka's brought up a good point. You need to clarify if there are cap on this before you actually put it into play, okay? And Commissioner Santos, did you have a question?
So let's go to slide 16. This is the proposed plan, correct? It needs to be approved. Because this plan has not yet been approved.
I don't think so.
I do not recall
Yeah.
approving a commercial plan. It's always been discussed, we've never done a commercial DSM.
Did we?
And then if you go to slide 17, you're proposing, for example, on the one side split hair to go from the current rebate of 100 to down to $79. Am I correct?
Yeah, these are just the recommendations.
Right, okay, so we're with you. We just need to understand that this is something that we need to approve, because that is new, old versus new proposal, right? And then if you go down to, for example, washers and dryers, that's a huge cut to go from $200 down to $20.
Yeah, I guess I'm like Commissioner Santos. The demand side management plan was approved by us and then approved by the PUC. They have the final approval on setting the rate. So what did they already approve this? I'm not remembering it.
So it has to be done by us.
John, what did they approve? They approved it already.
Wait, is this approved already?
They did not approve the reset portion,
Okay.
but they have approved the
current
rates that were rolling back. So again, the reset will be, yeah, the reset is not yet approved.
Okay,
It's something
okay.
for,
Proposed.
was recommended by our consultant to reconsider, but we haven't,
Commissioner Santos.
yeah. But the commercial, the other current rebates have been approved.
No, the current.
Yeah, even commercial.
You're both.
Because they allowed us to expand the program. remember that the demand side management program really worked with the PUC to continue to get the LEAC. And the LEAC, they gave us $3 million a year to implement. And so this.
Okay.
But what we can do, Mr. Chair, is I can bring this to you in February, so you can take a look at it.
Sure. Okay, Commissioner Santos, do you have one
Yes,
more
we can still
question?
make it,
Because
yeah.
Commissioner Talco's next.
So for the current fiscal year, can you give us the latest data that you got in terms of number of rebate requests that have come in for each of the respective categories? Washer, dryers, air cons?
Yep.
Yeah,
That way we
we'll provide.
we have a $2 million budget. Okay, that's fine. Because if you intend to lower the rebate amount, that means you can hopefully apply more rebates, right? For people
Give out to more people,
washers,
yeah.
dryers, and split airs. So, again, give us the latest data that we have for the current fiscal year for the people that have submitted rebate requests.
Yes, we'll provide that.
Yeah, okay, and then I guess the question is are you asking, John, for us to approve this, not now, but for example, in February?
Yeah, I'll come back to
The
you.
reset rate.
I'll come back to you in February, and again, even the reset rate, we will come with a very specific recommendation on that. This was what was recommended part by our consultant. And we will, yeah, and so I will come back and make sure the CCU is agreeable with this, and then, of course, we'll work it out through the PUC. Yeah?
Okay, Commissioner Talco, you had a
But
question?
again, this was based on their analysis on perhaps we're being too generous on the return on the washer and dryer, since they said 20 may be a better, but again, does 20 make people change? That's really our call at the end, no? So we'll bring that to you.
Yeah, even under the lighters, when we started with the program, lighters numbers were in line with the lower numbers.
Okay.
And we just made it higher.
So that we can promote the program, huh?
Yeah, so now it's kind of, when we look at it again, it's,
Yeah, air cons is what drives much more energy than washers and dryers, so we want to make a
Yeah,
bigger
yeah.
reward. We're kind of overpaying for washer dryers in terms of the energy savings, so maybe we reduce it. But, I mean, that's something, it's a good discussion. You'll bring it back to us in February.
Yep.
You'll tell us what you want to do.
Okay. Commissioner Talco?
Yeah, so that was my main question, is what was the logic on the reset? So were you making room for the commercial customers, or were you just putting it more in line with what you originally thought it should be? Because it is a significant decrease, right?
yeah, when our consultant did the analysis, and these are all based on really cost savings to GPA. So if we are going to start using the numbers, the current number there's not much savings to GPA. So if we want to keep that savings to GPA, that's the recommendations that the number for. But it's really our recommendation whether we.
Savings of energy.
Yeah, no,
Aircon is reset.
understood. So the initiation of the demand side management side that led to these higher rates, they were just as an incentive. So, or was the same analysis done that this is the cost benefit that would justify this rebate? Because I mean, that's a huge change, right, from $200 to $20. But was it just an incentive base that was the logic on setting the initial or the current
No,
rate?
it was still based on some back then. Those numbers back then. The program started way back in 2015.
2016. The 2016 was the final DSM plan that we submitted to the Public Utilities Commission, and we thought that sufficient time had been happening, and we've been taking a look at the market, and some of the rebates were like over 50%
Of the
of the
cost.
cost of the equipment. So we said we need to take a look at this in greater detail and ensure that not only we're getting a proper incentive, right, that we be responsive to what the market's doing. Because there have been a lot of air conditioning companies, supplier companies, that come up and established themselves since this rebate. I remember in 1993, that there was a boom in, because of the rebate program, in the number of outlets for air conditioning and energy efficient air conditioning. So, the market changed. It's been 5 years. Our experience with the pricing and everything, we said we need to reform our assumptions and take a fresher look at it, and that's why we did the research.
Yeah, and the whole concept is that the LEAG is coming really straight from the customers. So whatever they invest in the rebate gives them a return. For example, we invest 7 million, 3 million in rebate. We get 21 million over the 7-year savings over the life. So how much do you give to encourage the rebate? And then how much is the return to the rest of this thing? So some of these numbers have to be reset more on the current pricing, fuel, all the different scenarios. Because part of it is based on the forecast of the fuel forecast to make this decision. So that's how the resetting is. It's still a benefit to the consumer to buy the energy efficient, but we're trying to make sure that the ratio return to the rest of the customers is there also. So that's the reset.
Okay. Next.
I'm next.
Okay, for the demand side management, digitization, the way that program will work is that customers will fill out and submit the rebate application form and also be able to track their rebates online. And but also GPA will be able to process and approve rebate online. So we'll cut down number of papers that been generated and wasted, giving out to the customers. That's one of the environmentally friendly we're kind of looking at. The UESC contract. These are the currently projects that this USC is we're doing under the USC. There's a UOG investment grade audit, and then that follow up with the energy efficient project based on the audit. And then there's the Anderson Air Force Base energy efficient project, and we're also doing Navy Base Guam preliminary audit for them. There's a UOG energy. This was already finished. The energy efficient model house pilot project, and the Carpelito retrofit pilot project. Those are already completed under the UESC, and then also the Guam Pest School program, which is the school public schools and private schools, and we partner up with Guam Energy Office for the private schools, and we did a lot of energy efficient projects for them, and those are most of it are completed.
So we have a grant for UOG and a PV 14 kV. KWP.
Yeah. Under the UOG project we got a grant to help them with their, because then they have to go out and get a loan to complete their project.
So we're helping all the different major entities that under it to become more efficient, and again, the ESC program that's happening, where they give them a preliminary audit. If they agree that they support and want to make that change, then they do in a really what they call that audit, the second phase audit, to really get the numbers down, and if they contract, then they do the construction to make it all happen.
Yeah.
So this is something similar also we may look at for DOE in the future. Okay.
This is the ongoing projects timelines that we have. So we had a soft rollout of the ductless split central for the commercial under 5 tons. That was approved back in June. We rolled it out already. And then the ones here, we're looking at this year, but I guess if we need to approve those numbers, if you want to change those numbers, we might have to hold off on it until we make sure those numbers are good.
We'll bring it to the commission
Yeah.
in February.
Yeah, and then on the DSM online, we're looking at February to roll it out. So by February, customers should be able to take advantage of the online.
Rebate process.
Yes. And then the UOG, we're looking at starting in June. Okay. Air Force and Navy, January. They're starting this January, and they probably be able to finish it by probably by March.
So GPA is really involved in the community in terms of trying to get this energy efficient goals out.
DSM has been a major part of our, and again, we're reducing load, but again, knowing that we're load growing and knowing that the higher the loading, now you're using more costly generating, which costs you more. By doing the incentives, we try to bring the total LEAC cost down for the customer.
And we'd like to reiterate that project that we did at UOG with the energy efficient house. Saying it's in Dean Circle, so you have the same buildings, the same exact construction and design, and they're used similarly for office buildings. And that energy efficient house, just by changing out key appliances, was able to reduce the energy consumption when compared to those other 20 houses, right? By anywhere from 50 to 75%. So energy efficiency needs to be, in terms of clean power, right? Needs to be a big part of the clean power, and that's why we're more balanced. The GPA's approach in using renewables plus energy efficiency is a balanced approach.
Okay, John, volume 5.
Volume 5, okay. All right. Yep. We're doing a medium range distribution study with Landis and Gear, and so we're leveraging all of that metering data, right? That we've gathered using the smart grid systems, and using a software suite called Advanced Grid Analytics that will enable us to figure out problems before they become real big problems, right? And also be able to simulate, I'm going to add a 7 kW system here on a house rooftop. How does that affect the surrounding areas, right? So we're finalizing it. The program has had some bumps. We've had bumps with COVID. The whole team, or a large portion of the team, ended up having it at one time or another, and there were other issues. And we're doing the medium range distribution range plan for 6 substations, which should be completed at the end of February for all 6 of them. And that's 22 feeders. That's about a third of our system. And some of the things that we're looking at are locational value of solar, the conservation voltage reduction, volt bar optimization, and all of these. It's part of the strategy to look at using customer inverters to help stabilize voltage and actually improve the reliability and the power quality for the grid. Okay. We've actually been putting the outputs of some of the analysis to immediate use. GPA has taken the results of the distribution transformer overloads analysis, and we've begun to go out in the field and say, okay, is this a real overload, or is this because our GIS model is incorrect? Right? So it's really been split up between them, but there have been actual fixes of overloads among the distribution system. Okay? And it's also part of the package of engineering's use on daily operations, is that we've used it to change out faulty and identify and change out faulty transformers, adjust transformer taps, upgrade secondaries, and redistribute load to regulate voltage imbalances and stuff. So we're making good use of the platform that the Department of Energy and the federal government have given us $17 million to do. Okay, some of the results. I'm not going to go all the results because there's a lot of different scopes. Okay, some of the results we discussed it for a particular substation, upper substation. It shows that some clusters of net metering systems are causing power quality issues for neighboring non-net metering customers, including but not limited to flicker when the lights start to dim and go back on, higher low voltage and reverse power flows. And reverse power flows screw up our protection. Okay. As additional penetration of net metering systems are allowed on feeders, these problems become worse if we don't do any mitigation to them. Some solutions to these issues include localized energy storage, either at the customer base or on the distribution transformer side. And GPA control of customer inverters and intelligent charging to support PV and EVs, distributed storage. We can leverage, we're going to take a look at leveraging intelligent charging of electric vehicles to accommodate baseload variability and related to PV and reduce generation curtailment. Okay. So you can use them as storage batteries, and you can create loads. When you have too much PV, you charge more EVs and charge more batteries, right? The EV is just a big battery. Scope items 6 and 7 is about volt bar optimization and conservation voltage reduction. That conservation voltage reduction is to lower the voltage to all the customers to the point where it's just above the acceptable range, and that pays dividends in terms of reducing system losses. But it also creates an opportunity for customer savings. So actually, the bulk of the savings are on the customer side of the meter. Deferred cost of infrastructure for medium voltage equipment. You can leverage the voltage profiles and the consumer inverters, and additional benefit of volt bar optimization can be gained by using these existing customer assets. So when it comes to locational value of solar, it's not everywhere, but in certain spots, it actually helps. It can actually help contribute to better power quality in that area of the feeders. Okay, the next slide is actually a listing of all the scopes. Okay, so there's a lot that are in this thing, and I've looked at the initial presentations for Upper Substation, and so there's a lot of good stuff that's coming down the pipe. Okay. The demand response is in here, and automated switching and communicating fault circuit indication is about reliability, and so they've already completed that study. So our guys are looking at it to see how we can implement it. Okay. All right. That's
For the 6th substation, February, the end of February, that's what we're going to have, and then that will really lay the foundation of what work we have to do. No? Okay. Volume 6, that's Melvin. Melvin, please.
Oh, Melvin, I thought you were just going to do this digitally. You would just appear.
His back office is doing all of that.
Is this the real Melvin, or are you like a digital real digital version of you?
See that tabletop?
If you see it flicker, it's not real.
We're not there yet?
Not yet, sir. We're getting there. We're getting there. Okay, Volume 6, Information Operational Technology Plan. The IT/OT Technology Plan is a joint effort between Power and Water, supporting digital transformation through consolidation of information and operational technology, services and responsibilities across GPWA. GPA and GWA hired Sheffield Scientific to assist to help us plan out a 5-year strategic plan for IT and OT technology plan integration. Okay. The principal thrust of Volume 6 is developing a GPWA information technology shared services model to increase the operational efficiency and effectiveness of the IT organization for creating a governance, people, process, and technology infrastructure that delivers core IT services across both Power and Water divisions. As you guys know, right now GPA has its own IT department and GWA has its own IT department, but we share actually quite a bit of resources. CCMB is one. We share one CCMB customer information systems between both. Water and Power are also sharing our Tier 2 network, which is our wireless island network, for substation linkage, for information coming back from the water wells and UGAM also. So we actually are sharing a lot of technology right now. The problem we have right now is finding resources. As you guys know, finding qualified people is difficult, especially IT people, especially nowadays. Most of the people who are qualified are going for the bigger jobs at DoD. So Water and Power are fighting for both those resources. Having technology shared makes sense because we're in the same building. We have the same customer base. We have the same user base. You know, a lot of technologies nowadays, I mean, you can have separate departments, but you'll pay more and more for keeping each separate department running itself. So this report advances digital transformation for GPA. To date, GPA and GWA have taken the initial steps to digitize their business front ends to provide a deeper level of seamless customer service. By taking the next step of digitalization or digitizing back-end operations for digital shared services, they can expand efficiently, achieve significant time savings, and avoid outsourcing. So as you know, this pandemic has changed a lot of things for GPA and GWA. We have been more customer focused on the digital side. The DSM project is a big one for us because now with the DSM project going online in February, customers don't have to come in anymore. They can submit electronically, and there's actually an audit trail and there's a process trail. If you guys ever ordered pizza from Domino's, you'll see online, you'll see the pizza ordered, pizza delivery, pizza delivered, pizza ready. The DSM project will have the same effect. So customers, instead of having to call in and say, hey, where's my DSM application? Is it done? Is my check ready? They can actually check online. We're going to apply that to customer service also. So all these applications, all these services are meant for the same customer. So it makes sense to have GPA and GWA have one combined effort. So Volume 6 provides GPWA-IT with a roadmap to future state with connected and integrated efficient IT services model. So the whole idea is to provide one group to provide IT services to both departments, because it's not just an IT portion, it's also an operational technology portion. A lot of the new technologies to push forward for both Power and also Water requires communications, requires a lot of new servers, requires encryption, security, and on the customer-facing side also deals with that too, right? So a concise set of 38 recommendations exists for the following areas: network infrastructure, security policies and procedures, applications and software, and operational analysis and network future design. Right. On page 23, we kind of did a case study based on potential savings if both departments were to combine and provide that shared services model. Right. So this includes up to year 2025. It includes existing projects. Such projects include fiber optic ring northern side, includes infrastructure improvements, end-of-life equipment turnover, includes network operations for going out to remote sites, security, cybersecurity policies, and a bunch of other things too. So eventually, this long-term GPWA IT reorganization will provide benefits not just financially, but also for resources too. And once again, a good example is trying to find people to fill into security as a security officer. It's very difficult because everybody in Guam nowadays is looking for qualified IT people. GMRC, DOD, NAVFAC, and so competing with them, especially on an island where we're locked in, has been very challenging. Yes. We've actually lost people, yes. Very qualified people to NAVFAC and DOD, yes.
Commissioner Santos.
Is it because of salary?
It's because of salary, yes, sir.
And what are we doing?
We actually, we started with John B. and HR. We started a internship for cybersecurity personnel.
No, maybe just get this question.
Right.
If we need to raise their pay, how much?
Oh, that's all dependent, sir. Yeah.
No, but we can't, I mean, I know
Yeah.
what you're facing. because
Right.
You're every
Yes.
single day that I'm gonna steal so-and-so from so-and-so.
Yes.
And then, you know, you can't command that if you're a really good
Right.
IT person, so I think it behooves us to protect our people.
Right.
I'm sorry, protect ourselves, right? So if you're coming to us and saying that we need to adjust our pay to keep our people, I'd rather that we start talking about it instead of you coming to, you know, sir, because we didn't do this. I would think that we have to adapt and adapt quickly. Otherwise, Melvin, you're going to complete your own workforce.
Right.
And
Right.
to me, it's not an excuse. If we want to protect ourselves, we have to do it and do it now.
Yes. Yes.
And that, I think, is, tell us what it's gonna cost us to at least, at the very least, match. Okay, and make it competitive enough. I mean, hey, we did it with the engineers. Okay, everybody talks to us about, we can't match what GP and GWA does with engineers. That's why everybody wants to come here, as opposed to Public Works or these other agencies that are, I mean, imagine Public Works not having a chief engineer, I'm sorry. Yeah, now. But for far too long, they never had a chief engineer in GovCom's largest construction project, right? So I think we have a situation that we need to fix. I don't doubt that the CCU wants to support every effort we can get to, in your words, you know, at least maintain what we got.
Right. Right.
That's maintenance effort. Let's talk to us about it. We're into a new quarter of our budget, and Melvin, we're here to support you.
Right.
Because again, this is so critical to what we do, and when I will say that, when your largest customer is the Department of Defense, and they look at our IT all the time, and what we do, we need to take care of that customer.
Right. Right.
And ourselves, so yeah, please, John B., John Kim, you know, sit down and figure this out.
Right.
And get to us, because I don't want to hear, I mean, if we're losing it to another GovCom agency, okay, maybe that's acceptable. But I would think that we should be at the forefront of saying, no, we're going to protect our own. Let's do it.
We want to be the preferred place to work.
Right. So part of this review, IT integration study and plan also includes a organizational change and alignment, and also additional positions which actually fulfill our needs for OT and IT integration. Yeah, so that'll be part of it too. Yes, we've always identified it's been difficult because just like engineers, IT is a special field, and so you know, for someone to come and qualify with certifications for networking, database, and things like that, it's always been very, very competitive. But yeah, correct, sir. Yeah.
Do we at least offer the existing staff the ability to get the training that they need?
Yes, we do.
And is that something where we pay for it, or they pay for it and they get reimbursed if they pass? What is our policy? We pay for the training, okay?
Yeah.
Well, again, this is the plan.
Yes.
So we will, Miguel and I will run the work with the team, and then we will come to you with the implementation. Yeah, but the most one that we did there, we tried to make an opening.
Right.
But then, you know, our program to stay competitive is that we need to migrate migration for CCU program and make some adjustments as necessary. Here, by adjusting, I'm seeing that there's more consolidation of work, or you can say more work for individuals, therefore, would rather it's okay.
Yes, right.
Again, there is some blessing. Yes.
Yeah.
Are digital people cheaper than real people?
The other thing is, we are working on the
Yes.
by having interns, actually finding this training and wanting to make it.
Right. Right. Yep. Right. So actually, besides the cybersecurity internship we have for GPA, we're actually working with GCC directly. GCC requires their computer science and program to have at least one semester, which I think is about 180 credit hours of internship. So we've been working with Waterworks and Power and also PSCC to share those interns. We have a new set coming in, I think, next week for the spring. Yes.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So we're trying, besides trying to fend off or to fight with other companies on getting the best people, developing from the bottom and bringing them up is also another solution we're looking at too. Yes.
It's like an apprenticeship program, but for the professional we call it interns, no? Where they come in and on a contractual basis and then train with the goal to be here, and then we provide all the training plus compensation at a prorated amount. So that it's our way to try and keep up with all the retirement, because 50% of the workforce is going to retire. Case in point, maintenance, operator maintenance. We no longer can just go maintenance person or operator. We're combining the two. We have an internal apprentice program developed, and we advertise it, and for 20 positions for the operation and maintenance of the power plants. No, we had 84 applicants. Today this weekend they're being tested, and we're going to pick 20 that will help now within the system, because if you recall, we've gone from 512 employees to now 413. So I can't go any further. We now have to bring in and train, and as more retire, it will come to a balance. See? So that's kind of where we are. So again, that's similar program that we're working on for IT and some of the other areas. Bring in accounting, bring in graduate, train them over 2 or 3 years to be utility specific training. No? So, but this is again the key. This is what's going to drive IT, and we'll bring this to you. And I'll be looking for Melvin's recommendation on the compensation that will keep them, so that we don't lose anymore. Right, Melvin?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you got it.
Saying that, Melvin and I have been taking this around for a number of years, and then we approached Chris Knocking, and Chris has been really instrumental in making this.
Yeah.
His support that,
Right.
Another thing is that Melvin has told me time and time again, if you want to be an IT person on one, the place to be is to drop out or the things that we're doing. The level and sophistication and the number of things that we're doing, within 3 years, that person's working on those projects, the work is consumed.
So just to give an overview, the two people that we lost that went to DOD and NAVFAC, the experience that they got at GPA was one of the experience that they wanted at DOD because there was no one else available. So GPA actually, as far as technology, we are actually cutting edge. I'm going to say cutting edge. I've seen Homeland Security, I've seen other departments, I've seen DOA, I've seen GCC, I've seen EOG. GPA literally is cutting edge. But at the same token, because we're cutting edge, we have to, because we're putting so much smart grid technology, everything is dependent on technology nowadays.
What was the salary and benefit differential that caused that one good person to go there instead of staying?
I'm going to say it wasn't that much. I'm going to say about 20,000 plus a year. Yeah.
So that,
but because it's a federal job and because and 1% COLA. Yes. What?
yeah.
I mean, I don't know, guys.
Yeah.
You know me, I'm a private sector guy.
Yeah.
I've always said that if you have to be an unclassified employee,
Yes.
or I'm sorry, you're a better word, contractual employee, then maybe that's the model we have to start using to protect. Yeah, I mean, at least
Or
the
raise the
tax-
pay, or just what you
Just
said
raise the
earlier.
pay.
Just, I mean, if that's, if for us to compete, to retain, I mean, this sounds like the old lineman problem, right? When we were training linemen, then they'd all go to Anaheim. We then adopted that law that allowed us to set up CTP, and CTP is designed exactly for management and leadership to say, if we need to adjust pay scales for an area we're having trouble feeding or that we're losing people from, then I'm with Commissioner Santos to, do it or come to us or tell us, especially if we're cutting edge and we're losing our good people to other places that are elite, are trying to be like us. I mean, then to me, something's wrong with that picture. We want to retain those people because we're cutting edge and we pay well, right? And so.
It's nice to be known as a training center, but it's not.
Yeah, exactly. We want the graduates to stay with us instead of go somewhere else.
I mean, I know that, like I always knew that our engineering between the two GPA and GWA, and I've always wondered why the government can't share it. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But, I'm not going to wait for them to figure it out.
Yep.
We need to do what we need to do here, and we have it. We have the resources to do it.
And we have the authority.
And I don't think the ratepayers are going to complain when they sit, like they said, power's running, power's on, power's reliable. What more can you ask for? I mean, yeah, it is expensive.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's worth the investment.
Get it to us sooner than later.
Yep, it's worth the investment.
Right. Thank you. Any questions? No. Thank you very much.
Oh, you answered my question on the grid penetration. We got to get that done.
Now turn it over to Jennifer. Strategic Plan 7 and 8.
Yeah, this is a short presentation. Thank
Short
you.
one?
So, the strategic plan has been a discussion over time. I think we've all talked about strategic issues, and it's actually been driving the IRP and setting the tone to what we want to be addressing in the IRP and other things as we move forward, the RPS and all those things. We had adopted a mission, vision, and critical success factors way back in 2013. That's still in place. I mean, affordability, reliability, those things have been on our radar since then, and they still continue to be consistent with what customers want to have.
They'll never leave our radar.
Right. So, so over the next 10 years, we're trying to still achieve these goals. Financial stability, again, reliability, affordability, those things. And what we've done to kind of categorize all of this is to put them into these 5. And these are what we have displayed up here. It was what John Cruz introduced earlier. And it's touching on grid transformation. We are entering into technologies that are coming out, maturing, and we need to take advantage of it because we have renewables and microgrids, and all these digital systems that are helping to improve our efficiencies, lower our costs, and we'd like to take advantage of them. Customer experience transformation, trying to appease to the customer in access to information, again, smart grid has helped us with energy data access, so customers can know how they're using their power and how they can help themselves. We're also providing rebates. We're also attending to them as needed, short outages because battery energy storage systems, things like that, addressing renewables, things like that. Affordability, looking into resources, how we can reduce costs, things of that nature. Again, digital transformation, taking advantage of technology so that customers don't need to come in, things are online, accessible. Smart Grid is doing automated work for us so that outages are shorter, things of that nature. And then looking at foundational infrastructure. We have the resources in place to support the activities needed. Are the other, that's human resources, that's infrastructure, things like that. So, pretty thick document, but I think these are the objectives that we try to categorize and we list to kind of help us move forward with all of our planning for new projects, the CIPs, programs that we want to address going. I don't know if you want me to go through each slide, but
No.
that kind of summarized it.
You summarized it very well.
Okay.
No, short answer, no.
Okay. So that's the end
Okay.
of my presentation.
Okay, we're almost done.
Okay, then I'm actually, let me,
Volume 8, electric vehicle roadmap.
so the electrical vehicle, the Biden administration set a target, 50% sales to the automakers, auto workers, to try to achieve by 2030. We have already been approached by some of the distributors on what GPA will do for servicing their customers that are buying EVs or will buy EVs, as these distributors are now, other distributors, because we only had 2 at one point, other distributors are now looking at selling and bringing in EV vehicles, both passenger and commercial type vehicles. So with that, we have a roadmap that's attempting to look and plan for this type of electrification of transportation, because we have not really modeled that in a forecast because we don't know how this really will impact us. But it could be a big impact because people may go home at night and as they turn on their air conditioners and their TV and washing machines and everything else, they're going to plug in an EV system. And that is a big issue for us. So it's something that we need to kind of manage. There's several ways we can do that. There's incentives, there's time of use rates, those types of things. And so this EV roadmap is an attempt to try to bring out those things and what are the things that we would need to do to help address it. There's policies, there's planning, and anticipating when we may feel this electrification hit Guam.
This is where your time of use programs start to come
Commissioner
into
Sanchez.
place.
Can I ask a dumb question? In the mainland, I understand why you gotta have charging stations, you know, when your Lexus can, or your, what do you call it? Your Tesla can only go 300 miles, right? But on a little island, you know, I'm noticing on slide 30, or what I call 35, I guess that's the one, yeah. You know, they talk about public charging stations, high traffic areas, malls and all that, but we're so small, why wouldn't you charge it at home? I mean, for me to go to GPO and plug my electric car into a charging station when I'm a mile away, 3 miles away, it's not like my electric car is gonna run out of energy, right? So I wondered whether Guam's model for EV would have a lot more home charging and a lot less, you know, distributed charging, because there's no place far to go.
So there
How does that work?
Yeah, there is a place for both, okay? In our discussions with the dealerships, they want to see the chargers that are public chargers elsewhere, right? When it comes to the homeowner, right, they can charge at home, but we need to manage the impacts of that.
Yeah.
Like, we don't want them all stacking up on our peak, and then creating an even bigger peak and causing our need to go and get more generation. Right?
Right,
So
right,
we're
but
gonna have to
But I'm gonna go to the mall at noon or 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock. I'm not gonna go there at midnight, right? So I'm just curious that whether Guam, as we look forward, is gonna have a lot of distributed charging stations when we're such a small island. Eventually I get home and I just plug it in at the house. I mean, no matter what, charging stations on different circuits we have to worry about. You know, we have to worry about our circuits. That's a given. But I just was, when I saw down on the bottom the high traffic charging stations here, there, and everywhere, it just struck me as, you know, maybe I'm trying to figure out what I'm missing. I mean, I guess I could forget to have charged my electric car last night and drive to Micronesian Mall, and
I think that's a good question. And again, these are typical scenarios that happen.
Yeah.
And again, it's something that we'll have to address in our roadmap. How do we, you know, what really with minimizing cost but having the convenience of not running out of electricity.
Just in case you forgot. Yeah.
So when
and
we
again,
talk about
the
public
number
chargers, we're
and
talking
all of
about
that.
places with high traffic areas like the mall or office buildings, right? But we're also talking about like residential, multi-family residential homes, like, you know, towers and stuff.
And what John is talking about making sure, this is where again, we have to work with all the customers and provide a significant incentive to let them charge it at night. You know, put a timer on there and charge it 10, 11 o'clock at night to the early morning where our demand is like this.
And we'll pay you to do it then.
And because that
reward you
is
for doing it.
cheaper energy.
Yep.
I mean, when we back off the generator in the early morning, it costs us more to produce that energy because it's not as sufficient at this load versus this load. See? So therefore,
We don't mind paying them
we
for
can take that
off-peak charging.
incentive and provide it to the customer without charging anyone anymore. So that's the refinement that we have to do now. But this is the
At least we're thinking about it.
yeah, this is the
Acknowledging
how to-
that this is
yeah.
how to think about it.
potential.
And the biggest-
And the benefits to having the daytime chargers at those public places, because then they suck in and consume the excess solar.
Yep.
Okay, we're gonna have a lot of solar PV, right?
Yep.
That's not stored in a battery. And that's going to move for curtailment of either generation or curtailment of that solar resource.
So that's gonna be an incentive we offer the mall, for example.
Yes.
Hey, if you put a
Yes.
charging station here, we'll reward you for daytime usage. We won't reward you as much for nighttime
Yeah,
charging.
you've got places like the schools with the large parking lots and stuff, right? Then that comes an opportunity to keep our generation at the most efficient, as well as using all that good solar PV energy.
we then put it in, we pay them a fee,
Yep.
portion of it, then we don't have to put that investment or maintain it ourselves. Right? And again, the roadmap needs to be developed now because the manufacturers now are putting out more and more different types of vehicles into the market. Before, you know, it was like this, but now we really have to plan to move this forward, no?
Yeah, especially for the commercial market. I mean, we're already looking at electric tractors, you know?
I mean, let me ask the question that we should be asking ourselves is, when do we want to move into this market? Requiring, for example, that our fleet start considering being EVs, a percentage of our fleet. I mean, we have a lot of vehicles that I drive in every time, and they just sit out there. You know, I mean, at what point do we as the CCU says, okay, you know, starting FY '23, 10% of our fleet should be EV.
I think
That force us then to,
yeah, I think the answer, and again, is really, let's take a look at what is out in the market. Let's get an inventory and bring that to you and say, okay, now based on what we have, there are F-150s now that are electrical.
Bucket
There are bucket trucks, maybe that could be. There are some that have electrical only as what is it? The hydraulic controls. No?
Bucket truck.
Let's see what that inventory is now and then and set the goal of transitioning.
Convert.
So we can do that. Because the market, again, the manufacturers are, yeah. buses, electric buses.
Yep.
So there's a lot that we can look at now to make recommendations even to other entities, no?
So we haven't finalized anything, we're just saying this is something that we do need to look into and that we will need to spend some
So
resources
they're
on.
going to take your concerns to heart.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess the question for me is, we know what's happening, guys. I mean, let's not ignore the fact that electrical vehicles are here on the block. I mean, I watched the rich doctors at GRC drive in with Teslas, I mean.
They have Tesla on Guam? Wow.
Charging their cars and obviously at home, because we don't have a charging station in our parking lot. But can we do one? I would say absolutely, because we generate our own power.
We do one already for our Kona. We have a charging system right at our building.
Yep. 180 megawatt charging station behind the house.
That's a very big one.
So we
Yeah.
need our own access road to that particular charging station.
The 198, but yeah, you do have one.
Yeah, your rooftop's kind of small.
Okay.
We have a gigantic rooftop that's adjacent to our access. So, I mean, again, it's just the forward thinking that I know we all do, but I think what I'm trying to do is, you know what?
Let's
Hey,
move it.
By 10% of our vehicles outside should be an electric vehicle, whether it's operations or, like we did. I mean, we're the first company to invest in 2 electric vehicles in the entire Gulf War. Why did we stop? Why?
It was a pilot project, so is the project now moving from pilot
Well, and a
to?
lot of it is waiting for the commercial EV sellers to get us EV bucket trucks and EV tractors and,
And become more competitive, so.
but it's coming. You're right. It's
So
coming.
I think we're here now. I guess that's what the answer
That's
is.
what
So
page 35 is all about.
Okay.
At least we know for the next 2 years.
It's almost like, I don't want to say they're expecting us to do it. I think they think we're going to do it. And,
No, we will do it.
Charging station somewhere.
We have a charging station downstairs.
But yeah, like I know, for those of us that go out the street, we go, I mean, Walmart is EV haven, right? There's not one Walmart that doesn't have an electric charging station, somewhere in their parking lot. So, yeah.
So we're going to be looking at something called EV managed charging services. Okay, that's, if you go onto the Smart Power Alliance, the SEPA, right, they actually advocate that. And so we thought about it, and we found out that SEPA also was thinking about it, and there was some concordance of ideas, right, Dan? Right, so that'll help us with the public chargers. Good. Okay, so that's something that we're exploring now.
Is there grant money out there, John?
There's grant money. We have a grant for the power takeoff battery. So that's converting a bucket truck so that when it's doing its job, the boom and the cabin are powered by a battery rather than having the
Diesel.
having it idle, because idling takes a lot of fuel. It's very inefficient and it's very polluting.
Very good.
So we have a grant for that. So they're putting up the specs and they're going to be bidding it out once OIA says that they're satisfied with all the paperwork. So.
Well, we're going to be putting in more and more grants, especially, there seems to be a lot more coming out in the market by the federal government soon. Okay, volume 9, John, net metering.
We're on the last hole.
They still have the survey for the. Want to go over the survey?
For what?
John's just pointing out, we did a survey of the distributors. And so we have a little over 50 cars out there, but there's Teslas that you buy directly from Tesla. So, but this month or this quarter, 3 other distributors are bringing in vehicles that they've never done before. So we're seeing, and we're also seeing the commercial ones come out. So this was done in September, ish, when we did the survey. So we would have to do an update to see if there's any changes in these schedules.
very good.
So at least now you know where to shop when.
It's coming, it's coming. We'll get ready for it. It's coming.
But no commercial vehicle survey?
I think the commercial, sorry, it looks like the Triple J will be bringing them in this quarter. I just don't know exactly when.
A Triple J is not really a commercial
Well, they have a
dealership. They have
commercial
they have a
vehicle
small
listed there.
commercial fleet, but no real commercial
like
vehicles.
the big, heavy.
Big tractors,
I didn't-
Service
I didn't-
vehicles.
Did we hear about that? Sorry. Any big, like, heavy equipment?
Yeah, the heavy equipment, we got our quote for the bid, well, the grant for the EVTO from, Morocco. So they would be able to bring on stuff like that. But they're Con Edison in New York, they have a contract with, Lion Company, which supplies buses. Okay, you might see some of them on island, right? They actually are going full bore with Class 8 vehicles, like bucket trucks, like dump trucks, like large delivery trucks and stuff like that. So those are being introduced into the market right now. Okay, the bucket trucks, Con Edison is actually putting an order for them, and that will be available in 2022. So once that's established and that those standards are established, we can start probably ordering them. But it'll have to be through a distributor because we've talked to Lion about it. And
My question was there a survey on the commercial vehicle side, like your survey here?
no, we didn't do one in the commercial vehicles. A lot of them
wanna consider
are
doing
still
that.
being in development. Like I was talking about the Lion, and they don't have a distributor on island.
And what I'm saying is you should do a commercial survey on the current commercial providers that exist on Guam, just like you did here.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay,
We actually had conversations with Lion in terms of if they did do that, the first thing they'll have to do is establish a dealership and support here. So, but that's not ready at this point.
okay.
Okay,
Volume 9.
Net metering, sir?
volume 9.
Yeah, let's
Okay.
finish. We're close to lunchtime.
Yeah. I'm deaf, but I can hear people's stomachs.
Yeah.
Okay, so, especially mine. So net metering plan, we contracted Sheffield and UFS, the Utility Financial Services, which also they're our rate consultants, to take a look at net metering and what do we need to do about it. Their study recommends the following, that solar penetrations in each feeder should not exceed 30% of the minimum respective daytime load. Above 30%, new solar installations should require smart inverters and adequate battery capacity storage. A value of solar rate methodology should be used to reimburse customers for solar generation instead of full retail value. To modify the current NEM rate methodology to include either a net billing or buy all, sell all methodology that more accurately reflects the benefits of solar generation to GPA and grandfather current NEM customers for a period of 10 years. But they have been waiting for the results of volume 5 to provide additional comments and analysis. And we'll be getting that out to them as soon as we can. Obviously, we did one for APRA. Okay, so going forward, so there's still a little bit of work there, and we need to connect those scope 5, volume 5 with volume 9. So this this is all about from a presentation that they made to us about APRA substation. That's an existing, it's got the existing state, how the reserve flow impacts of PV occur on all the APRA feeders, power quality impacts, and consumer stress impacts and corrective solutions. So I'm going to skip the first two. They have existing state, and that just tells you gives you a load profile of all the different feeders on APA, right? And some of it will show, like on the example of a P22, it actually shows when cloud cover comes what the load profile of that feeder looks like. But I'm going to skip to reverse flow. Okay, as part of the assumptions of this study, for some of the solar PV locations, we did not have the exact KW on the database. So we used a proxy for that. Not a lot, but you know, so these results actually are pretty conservative. So reverse power impact. Okay, if you go and take a look at the base case, right, that means instead of the power flowing from the substation down to the feeders, down to the customers, right? Reverse flow, it's flowing from the customers out to the feeder, and eventually, as you get more penetration, even into the transmission side, right? So if you take a look at let me see this.
John, what are the colors? Are they, what?
Yeah, the red. There's red. If you take a look at the red, there's this section right here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, can you point it out? Yeah, that section right there. Oh,
Given the
The red color demonstrates reverse flow.
done there.
The red color is reverse flow, John?
yeah, reverse flow.
Okay.
You're getting it from here, this location currently existing on this feeder. Okay? You add 30% solar, then you get more reverse power. You have 60% penetration, then you get almost the entire feeder is reverse power. And then you get reverse flow into the transmission system. At 90%, the entire feeder is reverse flow.
And that assumes that the customer's not consuming that energy? That they're not consuming all of the energy
correct.
they're producing?
That's correct. And we found that, in particular, in some areas in APA, there are systems that are way beyond their load.
Where? I'm sorry, where?
They're
where?
above their load quite a bit,
APRA.
so they're actually putting out a lot of energy into the grid.
APRA
Yeah.
Heights?
Yep.
What part of APRA, John?
We're looking at all the feeders,
How
all
many
4 feeders on APRA.
have, okay.
Yeah. So, well, right there it says P220.
Military.
Okay, so you see the reverse impact. There's PP with the, so you get to see that as more and more penetration comes in, you start seeing these reverse flows, and that affects protection, and that reflects other power quality issues. Okay, next. Power quality. So we're taking a look at swell voltage, meaning the voltage will go from like normal, and then all of a sudden it'll go up. Or it'll go up and it's sustained, okay? And voltage flickers are those annoying when you see the lights dim and then brighten and dim and brighten. Right? So we take a look at power quality from that standpoint. Okay, next slide. Okay, so in this particular neighborhood, they actually went out and got a neighborhood, and there's the PV system. And the area around this PV system is actually causing overvoltage to all the neighbors. Okay, significant overvoltage. Next page. So those are the areas where they found, and they're on different feeders, where the voltage swell is like 20 to over 20% over voltage. That's a high voltage. Okay, so that affects the health of your electronics, your motors, and if you have a lot of resistive load, it may even do something, cost you money. Okay, so this is the flicker irritation chart. It's IEEE standard. They did a survey of a whole bunch of people, and they said, okay, if you have this many dips per hour in terms of voltage, right? Is it observable? And how observable is it, depending on how big the dip? if you have a lot of dips, then people start to get really irritated about it. So there's that borderline of irritation. So voltage flicker in this neighborhood, you also see, when you have a cloud. When you have a cloud come over, then the voltage starts to drop, and then when the cloud passes, then the voltage goes back up. Okay. So on these different feeders, on P220, you have a lot of flicker that's in the visible range, and it starts to irritate customers. Right? It's visible on P2221, almost on P222. They're not quite. People aren't noticing that yet. And on P223, it's beyond elevated, and it's beyond the peak stress period where people are actually pretty mad at us for their lights going on like that. Okay.
So would that be an area you would say no more solar until we can
Yes,
solve
it
it?
would either you put more solar, or you take charge and control their inverters, so that you can make sure that the voltage that's being set by this power can be controlled.
But that taking charge takes a lot more work, or you need
Yeah, it
to
can
be
take a lot of
control systems, everything. So
Yeah.
some immediate fixes will be looking at fixing these areas now with solar batteries. So the next step, we're going to take all of this information and try and address this power qualities that are occurring out there now.
And like how many, I mean, in this picture, I only see one solar array. How many solar arrays are up on this circuit? I mean, it just seems with all this, on P223, it's beyond stress. How many
Yeah,
solar,
I don't
just
have
from
that.
one house, three solar arrays, 5 solar arrays?
Yeah, if I had Lewis around here, he would have that on top of his
Okay.
head. I don't have that on top.
It's in my GM report,
This is not the worst feeder.
I think.
Well, I'm just curious to learn something, like how many houses with a solar array start to cause a significant headache
One of these
on the
report-
feeder? And mainly because we're also wrestling with the PUC about trying to stabilize some of these things, like with batteries and all that. We're getting some resistance from them, and I'm trying to figure out, from their point of view, what is it, if we see that this is a problem on the system in terms of reliability, what are they not seeing, or is there a different reason?
They saw this in Hawaii, okay?
Well, no, I'm
so-
talking about the local PUC
Yeah.
who's telling us don't even require batteries yet. You know,
No,
it's
well,
like,
this is the first time they're seeing this. This is the first.
they us or they PUC, or,
Us and them. no?
and then now you share this with the PUC. There's
And
more
again-
evidence for you.
Yeah, and that's why we hired Landis and Gear, because again, because we have the smart meter technology,
Yep.
they can utilize all of this data and come up and help us come up with this in our GIS. So now we're doing the first 6, which is the 4 of the worst or most heavily
Loaded
PV circuit, no? And this is what we're finding, so we're gonna do the rest, but we're gonna see now how do we address to fix this and all of that, and send it to the PUC so that.
Showing that
we-
there's a real impact.
Yep.
We're worried about it.
Yep.
Okay, all right. Okay.
So was APRA just chosen as an example, or is there the highest concentration of PV right now?
This is not the highest concentration in substation. That would be up north.
Okay.
Right? But they chose this one because if you start seeing the effect of this, right, on systems that are less loaded, then you're going to have an enormous amount of impact on feeders that are very heavily penetrated.
And for feeder 223 though, how many homes in there have PV? That number of nodes are so high.
Yeah, they actually are able to say this neighborhood and identify what customers are there, so I can get you a list for each particular thing.
Well,
Yeah.
And it depends on how much PV is in the general area, and
We-
if they're actually exporting a lot.
We have those numbers.
if you go to slide 50, or the one that's on page 50, yeah.
Next one over.
Options for corrective actions, yeah.
25.
Then that tells you how many customers. I think that's what that says.
Are these solar customers or total customers?
No, those are customers affected.
These are affected.
Oh, affected.
But how many solar customers, that's what, I think the question we're asking is, if you're affecting 57 customers on the APRA circuit, How many solar arrays are on that circuit? 1, 3?
Yeah, I don't know,
We're trying to get it.
but I can get that information if you want.
Yeah, we're just trying to get an understanding that, you know, my assumption was one solar array on one circuit shouldn't cause you a problem. We're being taught that too many cause a problem. We're seeing impact on some circuits already. And we're trying to verify, was that from 1 unit, 8 units, 5 units?
Yes. So in the literature, they talk about how the supportability of solar penetration on a feeder, right? If they're uniformly distributed, right, meaning they're like everywhere and there's no big clusters of stuff, right? Then you can support a lot more than the 30%, okay? You know, I'm saying like 40%, okay? And of course, that depends upon what the size of the load and everything like that.
There's two
But if they're in clusters, then you see major impacts among customers, and then you have problems with that.
Okay.
Okay, so
There's two variables that impact, not just the number of solar feeder.
Size.
But for example, P220 has 24 customers. 221 has 64
These are solar customers or total customers?
solar customers.
Okay.
And then, for example, okay, 220 has got 24 customers with a connected capacity of 225 kilowatt. In 221, there's 64 with a connected capacity of 635 kilowatt. And 223 is 68 on 727 kilowatt. But then there's the number of customers within that, right? So if you have a lot of PV, not too many customers with customer load, so therefore that's going to drive. And that's why they took even like smaller models so that they can come up with what kind of ratio, and they're using minimum daytime load.
yeah, minimum daytime load.
What percentage of the minimum daytime load, as a rule of thumb, you start to begin to see these issues. And so we have the data to all the circuits as to what those are. And again, I give you the net metering report, but in that report also every now and then I come up with this. They come up with all the information of the circuit. So we have that. And again, in this one, 220 is already 37%. No, percent of feeder minimum daytime load, 220, 115%. So that's obviously why we're having issues. So the 221 is 28, 43% for 223. And again, so these are the correlations now with all this study and information now will give us that opportunity to go out there and fix this, and limit and put batteries to make it whole.
And so where you have the data for this, if a new PV customer comes in and says, hey, I want to install this, you guys will, make the determination whether you permit or not or sign off on it?
That's correct. And one, by having the opportunity to control that, but again, we need the control center. Maybe I may be wrong. There might be other ways to control it. Or secondly, having a battery in that system.
No, I'm saying now, right? Let's say that a customer that's on feeder P223 comes in and says, I want to install this on my rooftop.
Yep.
Given the number of nodes that you're having issues with,
You can simulate it.
can
You can put
GPA
in-
choose to not approve that installation?
Well, that's what I'm saying, and then the PUC is saying, don't do that because we approved that, and so we're having that discussion now. It's just the last meeting that this was
Well, that's
brought up.
regarding the battery, right? Requiring them to add a battery, but do you have any other recourse to not approve the permit?
installation at all.
Because of the data you now have?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the battery actually will,
No.
He's asking a different question.
Can we deny a solar
Now,
application
today.
based on this?
Based on this data?
yeah, I could.
You can
But
deny it?
again,
Okay.
But again, if the battery resolves it, then we can allow it to come in.
Yeah.
All right, but
No,
the
we kept
PUC
that.
has told us time out on
Yeah.
that. So the question we're asking is today, without a resolution with the PUC, that's still pending, it's,
We're
you have the
certain-
power today to say, if a circuit's overloaded with solar penetration, creating reliability issues, you have the authority today to say no.
Yes, and John, when they come in for approval, in these circuits, then delay the action until we can have a correction of.
In the actual approved,
Yeah.
you've seen everything, it says that if there's if you're causing problems, right, then GPA has the right to like disconnect or something.
No.
Not
I'm just
allowed.
asking, when a customer comes in and says, I want to install this, a new PV system on my roof, I'm on feeder P223, GPA is now aware from this study, and you'll probably get more studies done in other feeders, other substations, right, that P23 is currently experiencing 4,442 nodes. Do you have the ability to say, I cannot approve this installation because of this issue, is the first question. And then the second question is, would you allow the customer a solution by saying, we can approve it if you installed your battery?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying, yes. And so you now have that authority based on my, John,
Yes.
you now have that authority to be consistent with what statement I just made. Because we are aware of the problem. So let's either, let's take the time to fix it, or hold back until we can fix it.
So another question, John, is now that you're aware of the problem, if you identify the customers, the PV customers right now that are on this feeder that are causing the problem, what is GPA's recourse?
We don't have a recourse at this point, except to try and fix that up, fix the system, I cannot go back to the PV customers and require them to put a battery.
And mitigate it? And have them
I can,
mitigate
this
it?
is probably where the battery incentives now will have to come in for us to minimize, put in their system. But again, we need to discuss this more with the PUC now that we have come out with the solution. We just need now the time to address this. So maybe in the next month or two, we'll have a revised policy that will try to. I mean, we don't want to stop solar PV, but at the same time, as long as we can mitigate any further degradation and then find a process to fix the power quality that's already impacting these customers who are unaware really, and of which we were unaware that this is the impact. And again, because
Okay, I have a question.
PV is new. Yeah.
When you have a lot of solar on a particular circuit, you're saying it's negatively affecting the non-solar customer
Yes.
on that circuit.
Yes.
What are you saying? How do you negatively affect? What does that do? Does it damage his electronic equipment? Does it, what? That's what I want to know.
The
You
reverse
bring-
flow that John was referring to.
I know, I just wanted it on the record.
Yeah, and
but-
the high voltages that are occurring
Yeah.
are impacting the life of your equipment
Okay, John, a little
Yeah.
more specific. What?
in a non-solar house.
Yeah.
It's going back into the grid, right? It's going back in, and then these other
Your
entities
voltages are going, our standard delivery in A is plus or minus 5%.
Okay,
Some of these are already plus 20%.
okay. John, my question is, what types of equipment can get damaged?
John, electronics, what kind of?
So you can control their inverters
Huh?
and also.
No.
Customer equipment, what kind of?
Like electronics.
Like what? TV sets, smart TVs,
Yeah, computers.
computers?
just burns out.
Refrigerators, yeah.
Compressors burn out.
How does, here's my point. As we talk to the PUC, okay, you can do all this nice stalking. What you need to do is say, okay, so this is what's going to happen. People's are, their refrigerators and freezers, it's going to affect the compressors, and then they'll go out. And you will have a case to show them that when they come to you and say, hey, your power quality caused my air conditioner to break, what do? Buy them a new air conditioner, or do we have to say to them, "Yeah, that's really not our fault. That's the fault of these other things"? All I'm saying, John, is as you talk to the PUC, you have to give them the effect that's going to happen and what that's going to do to the non-solar house. Okay?
we'll
So
provide that.
that they'll understand that this is not affecting GPA, this is affecting a non-solar customer. I'm trying to get us to get away from this talk of, because the solar people have, well, GPA doesn't like this. This is affecting GPA. No, this is not affecting GPA. This is affecting your neighbor. And that's the point we have to make. And how it affects, you have to be able to demonstrate how it affects, so that then they understand they have a problem, because they have a group of people here who are paying, the group of people here, and these people are going to be harmed.
Yeah.
Okay? That's my point. Please.
And so
Okay.
we're going to concentrate on this so that we can
No,
discuss
I
with
agree.
PUC and also work on some mitigation as soon as possible on this thing.
Okay.
So wait, will a line conditioner help?
No, we have to fix the voltage. The line conditioner is just, well, okay, will probably help, but then at some point even it is gonna matai, no?
And
all of
the
that.
other-
Because again, see, the way from the conventional generation, right? We generate from the generator and we adjust the voltage there. Then it goes to a substation, it adjusts the voltage there based on the loading of the customer. But now you have another supply, or several hundred supplies here that we have no control. So therefore, that's what's impacting this group. Everybody else in this stream is okay. No?
Yeah, and the other impact is the cost to mitigate that is borne by all the ratepayers that aren't causing the headache. Yeah. So on that circuit, if the neighbor is getting clobbered by Simon's solar array, the cost to mitigate that circuit is shared by all ratepayers. Where is Simon's responsibility as the causer of the voltage and the backfeeding? Where's our responsibility if we put a solar array on our roof to make sure we don't have an adverse impact on our neighbor?
Yeah. Yep. And the other thing that I'm wondering is, is your study able to tell you the people who have put solar on their roof? In other words, usually it's like 4 or 5 panels can take care of your whole house. I see people with 20, 30 panels. The whole roof is covered with solar panels. That's got to be doing some havoc to your system.
Yeah, unfortunately, the cap may is 25.
So, yeah, but does anybody enforce it?
No, we enforce. No one has 25 cap on residential, 100 on commercial, right?
Really? John, I've seen houses where the whole house is full.
Yeah, but that won't be 25 kilowatt.
Yeah, okay.
So
It's have you seen anything higher than 25 kilowatt on a residential home? I mean, that's
the
going to
next
be
step we're going to do.
a big house.
We're going to be able to find out whether or not there's, after they come in and they do the first initial and they say, oh, it's under 25 kW, we can do a query and find out if at any point they're above 25 kW going back in.
Yeah, I think, John, you can do that as soon as possible. Have a query done by LG for all the circuits to see, assuming now that they're at a certain day that their load is 3, anything above 3 will give us that. So
We did find some anomalies on this
we'll
feeder.
try and find out, Mr. Chair. What are you trying?
We did find anomalies on this feeder where they said this area obviously has a PV system, but it's not in your records.
Okay. Oh, okay.
I won't be surprised about that one.
Okay.
As far as capacity, our team goes through it, make sure it's below 25 before they approve it. But unapproved ones, I won't know.
Okay, is that it?
That is it, Mr. Chair. And again, the key here is the IRP is really our guideline, our work moving forward.
Good job.
Major decisions coming from that IRP will now come to you for decisions, no? More deliberations and all of that. But now you see in the whole package that we have looked and planned out, no? Based on our mission and our, how do we accomplish this, no? And as you can see, it's quite comprehensive, a lot of thoughts and coming in. And so now, with your approval, and of course then also the PUC approval, then we will plan within those guidelines and begin the process of implementing, providing you funding sources, all of the different things, and giving you priority as to what we need to address, which is one of the first ones will probably be this power quality issue.
Okay.
Good work, very good work, very good work.
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry, we update it annually, or?
No, well, remember,
Every couple of years? I mean, I know we've done it on a regular basis, I was just trying to remember how often we do this this is a very comprehensive.
well, the last one was 2012,
2016.
2015. But then now there's major changes, there's a paradigm shift, no?
So this is
now
a major, this is the map.
Major update.
But now this is planning with the new power plant and
Okay.
more renewables. So
Renewables,
this
okay.
is now the beginning of the new plan for future generations, no?
So, if update of the generation reliability and the generation expansion should occur every 2 years or so.
So,
For the medium range distribution study, they should be doing stuff every year.
so we should call it maybe the 2022 Integrated Resource Plan, right?
Yeah.
Instead of updated, it's just the new plan moving forward.
It's a significant
Yeah,
plan.
significant change from the past, actually.
The old plans, we talked about how many generators and how much more generation, and now we're talking renewables and how to mitigate impacts from renewables. It's the paradigm shift has started.
Big shift.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to adjourn? No.
Move.
Move, second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.